Chapter 285 Life-Seizing Immortal, Calming the Sea's Fury, Name, Guan, Lifespan, 195/12708862, Physique, Primordial Karmic Body, Cultivation Level, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm, 9 layers. Under the tree, Guan lay on his back resting. He called up his attribute panel to check, and as he looked at his lifespan, a smile appeared on his lips. It had been 21 years since his last breakthrough, and had accumulated over 12 million years of lifespan so quickly. Guan was very satisfied, proving he hadn't slackened. As long as he maintained this pace, a billion-year lifespan wouldn't be far off. After looking, Guan sent his divine sense toward the sea-breaking rift. Not long ago, Zhang Buku had become an apprentice to the Master of Divine Exotic Realm. Guan could feel the goodwill released by the Master of Divine Exotic Realm, and he wasn't just paying lip service. Had already started teaching Zhang Buku earnestly and hadn't left the cave where Zhang Buku resided. From this matter, it was clear that the Master of Divine Exotic Realm was quite urgent, indicating that the catastrophe mentioned by stealing the 5 elements was approaching. Guan wasn't in a hurry. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm surely had other powers. Otherwise, how would he dare to create such a rift in the sea? Let them fight it out first. Once it involves Zhang Buku, he would then consider intervening. Anyway, Guan wouldn't directly involve himself in the strife unless he was certain of his ability to solve the root of the problem. Zhang Buku seemed to be in a good state, so Guan could rest assured. Everything's good, everyone is busy, being busy is a good thing. Guan scanned all those he had good relations with using his divine sense, and seeing that everyone was well, he smiled. He sat up, stretched lazily and then got up to leave. Disciples he encountered along the way greeted him, and he nodded back with a smile, his attitude gentle and devoid of airs. All the way to the pavilion he saw Yang Jian conversing with the Blood Prison Great Saint about issues in physical cultivation. The Blood Prison Great Saint was also a physique cultivator. Otherwise he wouldn't have obtained Divine Beast True Blood. Seeing Guan approaching, Yang Jian hurriedly stood up to greet him. Guan thought for a moment and said, "Rest well, and in a while, he'll take you to spar in a combat to test your real strength." Upon hearing this, Yang Jian's eyes lit up. Normally he could only spar with Li Lingtian, which was quite boring. Hearing that he could actually fight a real battle, how could he not be excited? Without waiting for a response, Guan stepped upstairs. In the distance, Stealing the 5 Elements, who was playing Go with someone, was observing Yang Jian thoughtfully. He could see that Yang Jian possessed some type of ancient treasure body, which made him more curious about Guan. No wonder this person could establish a close relationship with the reincarnation of the Reincarnation Path Emperor. His origins must be extraordinary. He didn't intend to investigate Guan but planned to form a good relationship with Yang Jian later. No matter what, as long as Yang Jian lived to 1,000 years, he would surely become a renowned figure, and befriending such an existence was naturally a good thing. Stealing the 5 Elements started contemplating what spells and divine skills to teach Yang Jian. Guan didn't mind him guiding other disciples in cultivation, so he certainly wouldn't stop him from teaching Yang Jian. That evening, Stealing the 5 Elements found Yang Jian. "Little brother, I've observed you for some time and feel that your talent and comprehension are exceptional. I have a hand technique set. Would you like to learn it?" Stealing the 5 Elements asked with a smile. Yang Jian knew he was a great cultivator. After all, he could win against the 9-Finger Divine Lord in Go. "Thank you for your kindness, senior, but there's no need." Yang Jian clasped his fists and refused. Stealing the 5 Elements was slightly taken aback and asked, "Do you think I'm not strong enough?" Yang Jian shook his head and said, "To be honest, I'm not interested in hand techniques, as the spells and divine skills related to the body are not as powerful as enhancing physical strength." Stealing the 5 Elements became interested and curiously asked, "Then what do you want to learn?" Seeing his persistence, Yang Jian asked, "Senior, have you ever read Investiture of the Gods or Journey to the West?" Stealing the 5 Elements nodded and said, "Of course I've read them." "You call yourself Yang Jian, could it be that you want to become an existence like him? But that's just fictional writing, and the cultivation techniques and divine skills in the books don't actually exist." Upon hearing this, Yang Jian could only shake his head and turn to leave. "Wait, how about I teach you a spear technique? This is the most powerful long weapon technique I hold. Once mastered, it can dominate the world, being unmatched, suiting your physique well." Stealing the 5 Elements hurriedly called out to Yang Jian. Yang Jian stopped, looking at him, his eyes slightly expectant. Stealing the 5 Elements smiled and said, "This spear technique is called the Heaven Extinguishing Tao Annihilating 36 Spear Techniques. It's very difficult to cultivate and so far no one has inherited it in the current age. Yang Jian upon hearing this said, "Is that so? Then I must try it." "Thank you, senior." "Find a deserted place to practice then." "All right." The two headed deeper into Medicine Valley, followed by the Blood Prison Great Saint, who was intrigued and wanted to watch. Stealing the 5 elements didn't chase him away because he believed it was impossible for the Great Saint to master it. Yang Jian did possess an ancient treasure body, a physique rare in this era. Inside the pavilion, Guan also noticed this scene, but he didn't pay much attention as stealing the 5 elements shouldn't act recklessly, and if he dared, it would be courting death. Moreover, he was curious about the heaven-extinguishing Tao-annihilating 36 spear techniques, wondering if they were indeed that powerful. A night passed. As dawn broke, the disciples gathered to practice. Guan saw Yang Jian approaching quickly with stealing the 5 elements following behind. Stealing the 5 elements appeared dazed, lacking his usual composure as if had been frightened. Guan found it amusing. Stealing the 5 elements was likely startled by Yang Jian's comprehension and physique. After just one night, Yang Jian had preliminarily mastered the heaven-extinguishing Tao-annihilating 36 spear techniques. Although he hadn't yet unleashed its true power, it was enough to amaze stealing the 5 elements. He suspected that Yang Jian's physique was among the strongest of ancient treasure bodies. Unfortunately, Impermanence Tian had been obliterated. Otherwise he could have asked him as he was the most knowledgeable about ancient treasure bodies. "What did you do?" Li Ling Tian looked at Yang Jian surprised. Yang Jian's breath was chaotic, indicating he hadn't rested the previous night. Yang Jian dismissively said, "Just cultivating, don't ask more." Li Ling Tian cast a glance at stealing the 5 elements in the distance and understood. After finishing their exercises, Li Ling Tian found stealing the 5 elements to inquire if had taught Yang Jian any Taoist sorcery, to which stealing the 5 elements nodded without concealment. "Can you teach me as well? My talent isn't bad either." Li Ling Tian promptly asked. Stealing the 5 elements appraised him and said, "Your aptitude is indeed good, but not enough to make me act. Improve your cultivation first, and perhaps one day when you look pleasing to my eyes, I'll teach you." "Pleasing?" Li Ling Tian was infuriated. All his life had been cherished by others and had never been rejected. Even in the 3rd Medicine Valley, Guan hadn't refused him. Li Ling Tian, teeth clenched, stormed off. Stealing the 5 elements wasn't bothered. Li Lingshan's predicaments weren't complicated, and the forces behind him didn't threaten stealing the 5 elements. He even anticipated trouble from Li Lingshan's backers, something to spice up his life. Just as he was about to play go, Shin Shinzi intercepted him. "Amit Ba, benefactor, care to chat?" Shin Shinzi sternly asked, stealing the 5 elements. Stealing the 5 elements smiled and nodded, and the two left the 3rd Medicine Valley. With autumn's arrival, the 3rd Medicine Valley gradually took on hues of withering yellow, and disciples could be seen everywhere clearing fallen leaves. Inside the pavilion, Shenzhen was enthusiastically discussing her new masterpiece with Guan. Guan was uninterested in her journey to the south, and his divine sense was gazing towards the ocean. Above the sea-breaking rift was a shocking battle where one person fought against 3 divine exotic ghost kings, and that person even had the upper hand. Heaven and earth flying immortal. The divine exotic ghost kings were already at the 9th level of heaven and earth flying immortal, yet there was another heaven and earth flying immortal who could single-handedly overpower them. How could this not pique Guan's curiosity? "Are you listening?" Shenzhen asked, dissatisfied. Guan smiled, "Of course I'm listening. But I'm more curious about your cultivation than your book." Shenzhen, Nascent Soul Realm, 7th layer 231/880/4400, Shenzhen's maximum lifespan had actually increased. This surprised Guan. Previously, Shenzhen's maximum lifespan was only over 2,500 years. Pity his junior sister and brother, diligently cultivating, yet unable to find a path enlightenment opportunity. Shenzhen, who spent her days writing and painting, lazy in cultivation, just saw her maximum lifespan increase. How could he reason with this? Perhaps writing and painting were another path of cultivation. Shenzhen coughed lightly, her face slightly uneasy, and she replied, "I'm doing okay. I'm working hard." Guan didn't have the heart to expose her. Every time he checked on her with his divine sense over the years, she was either reading, writing, painting, or playing music, living alone in her cave, seemingly never getting tired. Now, it seemed that her actions were not without meaning. Judging from Shenzhen's expression, she seemed unaware of her increased talent and comprehension. Guan didn't mention it. After all, she was still young and didn't need to rush in cultivation. If he said something, she might never find that same feeling again. What about you? Why does it seem like your cultivation isn't progressing? Shinjin asked, raising an eyebrow. Upon hearing this, Guan's face darkened immediately and he sighed. Shinjin frowned. What's wrong? Is something troubling you? Nothing. I just increasingly feel heavenly destiny. Even with medicinal herbs for alchemy, I find breaking through difficult. You don't understand this feeling. I see no future in immortal cultivation. Perhaps this is already my future, Guan sighed. Hearing him, Shinjin opened her mouth, wanting to console him, but words failed her. Talent is reality. Guan's friend Wuju had already soared, and as for Li Ye, had already become the face of the supreme sect. Guan forced a smile. Ms. Shin, my life is short, but yours is different. As he was about to continue, suddenly, a vast oppressive force engulfed the heavens and earth, interrupting him. Immediately, a dominantly unrivaled voice resounded throughout the world. I am the life-seizing immortal of the great cold demon sect. Today I plant a tower at the sea-breaking rift. Within 100 years, if no one can defeat me, I will annihilate all living beings who have heard my words to quell the ocean's fury. The great cold demon sect. Guan had heard of this sect, a demon path sect comparable to the Bitter Sea Buddha sect. According to Baizia, the great cold demon sect was also one of the few demon path sects recognized by the Holy Court. Though a demon sect, the places they massacred were all territories abandoned by the Holy Court. Could it be that their continent and the surrounding seas had already been abandoned by the Holy Court? Chapter 286. The background of connecting to heaven. Great cold demon sect? Life-seizing immortal? Where did they come from? Shinjin frowned, muttering under his breath, his eyes revealing a hint of unease. Guan continued, not sure, but judging from the voice, it's likely a massive creature from the sea. We had peace for just a few decades, and now another significant event is happening. Shinjin consoled, don't worry too much. The broken sea rift is so far from us. People of talent arise continuously in this world, and good will always overcome evil. We will get through this. Guan nodded, but his thoughts were quite the opposite. The power behind the great cold demon sect had already reached the heavens. As Baizia would say, since ancient times, the great cold demon sect and other demon sects with significant chi fortune have been acting as the blade of the Holy Court. There are always some matters that the Holy Court can't handle directly. Of course, the Holy Court isn't dark. They simply view things from the perspective of the entire universe and often encounter situations where they must sacrifice some beings or have no choice but to annihilate an area filled with living beings. If the Holy Court has truly abandoned this place, what could be the reason? It surely couldn't be because of the divine exotic realm, right? The divine exotic realm has nothing to do with them, they could separate it out entirely. Guan suspected there was a deeper reason he was unaware of. His divine sense probed, and the life-seizing immortal was not the heaven and earth-flying immortal who fought alone against the three divine exotic ghost kings. Instead, it was a carefree primordial immortal. His arrival had interrupted that great battle. Guan watched as the life-seizing immortal placed a treasure pagoda at the edge of the broken sea rift. It grew taller and taller, reaching through the clouds, no less than 100,000 feet tall, quite majestic. The life-seizing immortal then flew into the pagoda. The three divine exotic ghost kings fled into the broken sea rift, followed by the heaven and earth flying immortal, clearly aligned with the life-seizing immortal. Guan was curious to see if any other carefree primordial immortals would take action within the next 100 years. He continued discussing the affairs of the world with Shinjin. They were both minor cultivators in the world of immortal cultivation. When talking about the happenings in the world, they mostly expressed envy. Not long into their conversation, Shinjin excused himself. Guan also got up and went downstairs, ready to discuss the great cold demon sect with the disciples and cultivators in the valley. The shout of the life-seizing immortal had caused an uproar across the world. Wherever there were gathered beings, this matter was being discussed. When Guan arrived at the chess area, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord and Stealing the Five Elements were discussing the great cold demon sect with great cultivators from the supreme sect. Other disciples surrounded them, listening intently with tension. Shinji sat among the crowd as well. Although he rarely spoke, he listened attentively. After Shinji had spoken with Stealing the Five Elements, the two did not come into conflict. It seemed they had reached some agreement. At the time, Guan hadn't listened because in his eyes, these two couldn't stir up any trouble. The great cold demon sect has existed for 1,000,000 years. That life-seizing immortal is also a person from the legends. I didn't expect him to still be alive. Now we're really in trouble, lamented Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. He didn't mention the Holy Court, clearly very wary of it. 1,000,000 years. The disciples listened with twitching eyelids, unable to fathom how long 1,000,000 years was. The younger ones felt a longing. They hadn't completely resigned themselves to fate yet. They always felt that there was hope. The third Medicine Valley was only the first stage of their entry into the world of immortal cultivation. The world of immortal cultivation is full of stories where those with ordinary talent obtain great opportunities to change their destinies against all odds. Guan also listened intently as if he were listening to a story, occasionally exclaiming with the surrounding disciples or revealing an incredulous expression. Meanwhile, inside the main city of Sect. In a mansion, Lu Lingjun visited the courtyard of the Holy Mother of Western Spirit, where teacher and student sat opposite each other. The Great Cold Demon Sect is comparable to the Bitter Sea Buddha Sect. In terms of heritage, they are even stronger. If the Great Cold Demon Sect stands behind the Broken Sea Rift, we are in trouble. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit sighed, bringing up the existence of the Holy Court. This was the first time Lu Lingjun had heard the name of the Holy Court, and she was shocked. How vast is this universe? The Holy Mother of Western Spirit also suspected that this sea area had been abandoned by the Holy Court. Otherwise, the people from the Great Cold Demon Sect wouldn't be so unrestrained, even giving out 100 years, clearly wanting large sects to evacuate promptly. Upon hearing this, Lu Lingjun couldn't help asking, 100 years only the immortal cultivation sects can evacuate, right? Will all the myriad living beings who stay behind really die? The Great Cold Demon Sect has slaughtered so many living beings. The continents and sea areas affected by the Broken Sea Rift added together only make up a small area of the Great Heaven and Earth. To the Great Cold Demon Sect, it's nothing. The Holy Court won't care either. The fall of the beings in this area won't make waves in the entire world, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit said somberly. Lu Lingjun furrowed her brows. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit then said, I need to make a trip back to find out the real reason behind the actions of the Great Cold Demon Sect. Lu Lingjun nodded, beginning to consider the worst-case scenario. She was an ascender, so escaping wasn't a problem for her. But, having been in the Supreme Sect for so long, she cared about too many people. Her concern was how to help those she had relationships with. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit began to muse about the complexity of the affairs of the world. Initially, she truly thought the divine exotic realm was harming one side. But now it seemed the emergence of the divine exotic realm wasn't simple. Undoubtedly, there was an unimaginably powerful existence struggling behind it. Dark clouds covered the sky, and a continuous drizzle fell onto a mortal-seeking island. In a courtyard, Guan Yangjian and Hu Shaojian sat together, with Guan listening to Hu Shaojian detail the Great Cold Demon Sect. 3 days had passed since the life-seizing immortal's shout. In those 3 days, various sects on the sea had publicly disclosed information about the Great Cold Demon Sect, with various pieces of news reaching the listeners on Immortal-Seeking Island. Yang Jian listened intently, his expression constantly changing as Hu Shaojian spoke of the Great Cold Demon Sect, which appeared to be the most formidable on the demon path, with countless demon immortals within, making it seem invincible. The true calamity had descended. After a long time. When Hu Shaojian paused to sip his tea and moisten his throat, Guan asked, Have you managed to find out anything about the Reincarnation Path Emperor? The Reincarnation Path Emperor, one of Ji Xiaoyu's past lives, was always remembered by Guan. Hu Shaojian shook his head, saying, I couldn't find anything. I even feel like this exalted figure doesn't exist. But since you mentioned him, he must indeed exist. It's just that my level is too low, at least within the Immortal-Seeking Island there's not a single clue. Guan didn't get angry. He gently moved on from the topic. Hu Shaojian put down his teacup, his gaze shifted towards Guan, hesitating to speak. After hesitating for a moment, he stood up, walked to the side, then knelt down and began to kowtow to Guan. What are you doing? Guan asked with a frown. Hu Shaojian looked up, pleading, I beg you, senior, to take me away. The Great Cold Demon Sect's power is vast. The upper echelons of Immortal-Seeking Island are preparing to evacuate. I am only a nascent soul realm cultivator. Within 100 years, I absolutely cannot escape the range that the Great Cold Demon Sect wants to obliterate. Even if by chance I escape, who knows if I can survive elsewhere. Senior, you are a loose immortal. You come and go as you please, can you take me with you? I will serve you like an ox or a horse. Yang Jian sat on the side, his feelings complex. This was a nascent soul realm cultivator. In the supreme sect, this was an existence looked up to by servant disciples, yet he didn't even have the confidence to survive at sea. Guan pondered and then said, "Don't be anxious. For now, stay peacefully at Immortal Seeking Island. If the sea powers truly cannot withstand the great cold demon sect, I will take you with me. Before that happens, help me keep an eye on the Sea Protection Mansion. If they truly intend to abandon Immortal Seeking Island, then I will come and take over." Hu Shaojin was stunned, not expecting Guan to still be concerned about Immortal Seeking Island at this critical moment. Yang Jian glanced at his master. It seemed like his master had no fear of the great cold demon sect. His master referred to himself as a loose immortal. Could it be that loose immortal was not his realm but just his identity? Hu Shaojin wanted to persuade Guan, but feared offending him, so he could only agree. Guan noticed his concerns and reassured him, "Don't underestimate this world. Otherwise, the divine exotic resentful ghosts in the sea-breaking rift would have already swept across the oceans, right?" Hu Shaojin felt persuaded by these words and promptly thanked Guan. Guan waved his hand, helping him up, and invited him to sit and speak. Hu Shaojin continued to talk about the great cold demon sect. He knew a lot about it but nothing about the life-seizing immortal. Guan then began to think about how to control Immortal Seeking Island. Firstly, he must arrange someone to act as a puppet while he stayed hidden. Using the various channels of Immortal Seeking Island, he could collect more medicinal herbs and besides, it sounded like a fun endeavor. It felt like preparing to play a management game which he was quite looking forward to. To suppress Immortal Seeking Island he would need at least a wandering immortal. He had to think carefully about this candidate. Just like that, time swiftly passed and the rain intensified. 2 ancient hours later, Guan left with Yang Jian, returning to the forested mountains of the Supreme Sect. Yang Jian was no longer experiencing the limitless freedom step for the first time, but as his cultivation level increased, he grew more awestruck of his master's divine skills. "Master, is there really someone who can confront the great cold demon sect?" Yang Jian asked, his words still carrying a hint of cautiousness. He did not dare ask directly about his master's prowess, so he had to beat around the bush. While moving forward, Guan responded, "Who knows? At any rate, your master, I'm not sure." "Just not sure?" Yang Jian was secretly alarmed. Just what was his master's background? Guan was unaware of Yang Jian's thoughts. He had modestly underestimated himself, not expecting it would make Yang Jian even more amazed. Listening to Hu Shaojin, the great cold demon sect had taken on an unimaginably fearsome and evil persona in Yang Jian's mind, such an existence often being the ultimate antagonist in stories. Knowing that Guan was confident in confronting the great cold demon sect, how could he not be surprised? "Jianer, cultivate diligently. Even if we survive this calamity, there will be no shortage of trials ahead. From ancient times until now, every great cultivator has persevered through countless hardships. The greater the crises, the more diligently one must cultivate," Guan said earnestly. Yang Jian nodded, saying, "Disciple always keeps this in mind. I will strive to cultivate as diligently as you." How many years had it taken for his master to reach his current height? Yang Jian thought to himself, guessing surely it took tens of thousands of years. No, perhaps his master had even existed longer than the great cold demon sect, merely frolicking in the mortal world. He believed his master wouldn't deceive him. His master surely had also endured countless hardships and diligently cultivated to achieve his current level of cultivation. Guan continued to instruct Yang Jian, educating a disciple, after all, required occasionally teaching them, making it an enjoyable experience. Yang Jian, unaware of his master's inner thoughts, could feel his master's earnest intentions. Chapter 287 The Longevity Pact. As the year ended, snowflakes danced in the air. Inside the attic, Guan was pouring tea for Yi Lan, who was recounting her experiences in the subsect. Having not seen each other for many years, Yi Lan now more than ever exhibited the demeanor of a great cultivator. Cultivators at the divinity transformation realm could become leaders everywhere on the continent, and naturally her aura grew stronger with each passing day. This made Guan find her even more charming. Back then she was always hanging around him, the little girl who always followed him around. Now she had become an existence that stood above tens of thousands, which made him feel not only nostalgic but also immensely proud. Her experiences in the subsect mainly involved power struggles and gaining profit. With LV Batian having paved the way, she always managed to secure victories in various conflicts, and overall she had a smooth journey. After discussing her own experiences, she asked Guan how he had been over the years. growing various plants, playing chess and occasionally teasing the disciples for fun. "I'm quite content," Guan said, looking at Yilan with a smile. Yilan raised her eyebrows and asked, "Who is the girl downstairs? You've been wanting to ask that, haven't you?" That's what Guan thought to himself, but he said aloud, "Her identity is not simple. I will only tell you and you mustn't let it slip." The attic had a protective restriction, strong enough to ward off the probing of any cultivator below the divinity transformation realm, so Guan was not afraid of being overheard by Ji Xiaoyu. Yilan nodded expressionlessly. Guan took a deep breath and said, "Her name is Ji Xiaoyu. You understand, right?" Yilan frowned and asked, "Isn't Ji Xiaoyu already deceased?" Ji Xiaoyu had once been a renowned genius, famed for her beauty across the world. Her death had sparked much discussion within the Supreme Sect, and Yilan too had heard about it. She did die, but she has also reincarnated. Guan shared the information he got from stealing the 5 elements, his face full of emotion. Upon hearing this, Yilan too was taken aback. Such oddities existed in the world, and the background of Ji Xiaoyu was far beyond her expectations, even shattering her previous perceptions. Guan cautiously said, "Junior sister, this matter must not be disclosed. Otherwise, it might bring us great trouble involving reincarnation, and the enemies we would attract are extremely formidable. Faced with such entities, the Supreme Sect would have to either submit or be annihilated." Yilan nodded, then exclaimed with emotion, "Honestly, I was just feeling jealous of her, but not anymore. The gap between her and us is too vast, not to mention whether she would take a fancy to you, senior brother. Even if she did, I think it would be a good thing. Haven't you always said that your talents are mediocre? And since your relationship with that senior has been severed, you must cherish her. Perhaps she could change your destiny." As she spoke, her expression grew very serious. Guan was moved by her attitude. Truth be told, due to his experiences in his previous life, Guan felt that it was impossible for someone to consider others completely selflessly. Even love started from individual needs. He had rejected Yilan many times, but she had remained consistent, and he didn't want her to suffer losses. Thus he had always helped her. Of course, he was moved by this. At least Yilan had an irreplaceable position in his heart. But he hadn't expected Yilan to hope for his future to the extent of wanting him to cozy up to another woman. The silly girl. Guan glared at Yilan and said irritably, "Cherish what? She and I don't have that kind of relationship. At most, we are just Taoist friends, and in her heart, there isn't a place for romantic feelings, only the immortal path." That was the truth. He could feel Ji Xiaoyu's ambition. Whether in her past life or now, Ji Xiaoyu was not a woman obsessed with romantic love. Otherwise, she wouldn't have chosen death to resist a marriage arranged by her family in her previous life. Yilan rolled her eyes at Guan and said, "Senior brother, a woman staying in your building must have a significant background. How could she not have feelings for you? Even if you can't really pursue her, establishing a better relationship with her would still be beneficial for you." Although she had reached the divinity transformation cultivation level, she still felt that her path to immortality had come to an end. At least she no longer dared to hope for longevity, but she hoped Guan could have that chance. The reason? She couldn't really say. She just hoped for Guan to have a better life, and she felt he deserved it. From a young age, she always believed that her senior brother was worthy of all the good fortune in the world. Even when Guan rejected her, she wasn't angry. She liked her senior brother. Why should he have to comply with her wishes? Forget it, senior brother. I rather prefer a peaceful life. If she wishes to stay in the 3rd Medicine Valley, I will not treat her badly, and if she wants to leave, I won't keep her. She and I are ultimately not people of the same world. We should not hinder each other's paths." Guan shook his head and said. This too was his heartfelt truth. His goal was longevity, not marriage and children. Yilan blinked, unsure whether to feel happy or to sigh. "Senior brother, if you don't achieve longevity in this lifetime, would you accept me?" Yilan asked. Guan thought for a moment, then said, "If neither you nor I achieve longevity, then let's just live out a mortal's life in the last 100 years. A mortal's life spans only a century, and before that, let both of us strive for the immortal path. Who knows what might be possible? Although I seek a stable life, I have not given up on cultivation." Yilan smiled upon hearing this, gazing at Guan and said dreamily, "Senior brother, with you saying this, I suddenly feel like the life limit isn't so scary." Guan raised his hand to ruffle her hair, messing it up under her scolding gaze before he finally stopped. Later, Yilan brought up the Great Cold Demon Sect. She had also learned quite a lot about the Great Cold Demon Sect, which made her very anxious. She feared that the continent might not survive this calamity, so she had come back early to see Guan to avoid regrets. Of course, she still held hope that being Sword Venerable Fudao. This was also the reason why most disciples of the Supreme Sect hadn't panicked. Over the years, the protection of Sword Venerable Fudao gave them faith and confidence to fantasize about and tackle all adversities. As long as Sword Venerable Fudao didn't abandon them or be defeated, they would surely be able to overcome the calamity. In the end, Guan invited Yi Lan to stay, and naturally she did not refuse. After night fell, Guan took Yi Lan around the valley and even took her to watch others play chess. He also called Yang Jian over and had Yang Jian pay respects to Yi Lan. Yang Jian's attitude was very respectful, sensing that his master treated Yi Lan differently. His master calling him over must have a profound meaning. Could she be not a martial aunt but the mistress? Thinking this, Yang Jian also felt joyful, suddenly sensing that his master wasn't as unapproachable and even had a human side. That night, Yi Lan stayed at the Third Medicine Valley, occupying Guan's room. While Guan read, she practiced chi absorption cultivation. By late night, when Yi Lan opened her eyes, she saw Guan still engrossed in his book, the candlelight illuminating his face, and a blissful smile appeared on her face. Actually, this was quite nice. Yi Lan watched Guan for a while before closing her eyes. As dawn neared, the situation changed. "Senior brother, you must be tired, let me give you a shoulder rub." "Why would I be tired? You're the one who's been cultivating all this time." "It's fine, I'm at a higher cultivation level, I'm not tired." "Is this a shoulder rub?" "I'm just checking your body, afraid you might develop some problems from your usual routines." "Wait, don't touch any lower." "Senior brother. How could your junior sister harbor any inappropriate thoughts towards you? I have a unique sorcery that can nurture your chi blood." "That's not okay, not there." At dawn, Guan descended the stairs with a complex expression, and Yi Lan followed behind, her face radiant with a brilliant smile. Ji Xiaoyu emerged from the room, her gaze shifting toward the two, her brows slightly knitted. After descending, Guan introduced the two women to each other but didn't talk much. Yi Lan then followed Guan to practice exercises. Ji Xiaoyu stood still watching. After a while, her brows relaxed. Yi Lan planned to leave after the Spring Festival. Guan would take her with him to the Outer Gate City in the Mystic Valley, but not to Qinya Valley or other places. She didn't ask much, thinking that it was good for her senior brother to have secrets, indicating that he still concealed his identity. Naturally, she hoped her senior brother would become even more formidable. Chapter 288. 9 Profound True Fire, Calamity from the Sky. This year's Spring Festival felt warmer than in previous years for Guan, thanks to the company of Yi Lan. The day after the festival ended, Yi Lan left. She did not wish to become lost in the presence of her senior brother, as cultivating her immortal path was a major life event for her. At this stage, her main task was to diligently practice her cultivation. Despite the declarations of the life-seizing immortal from the Great Cold Demon sect casting a shadow over the lands, it had not impacted the overall structure of the world. By the following year, the immortal cultivation world had returned to its former state, though various sects had begun dispatching more disciples to explore overseas. Years passed one after another, sunsets followed by moonrises. Third Medicine Valley saw disciples advancing each year, with new disciples joining, constantly increasing in number. This was because the Supreme Sect itself was growing stronger, which led to an increase in the number of servant disciples. These servant disciples needed positions to earn spirit stones. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. Guan stood by the window, using his divine sense to survey a distant great battle. A great cultivator had gone to challenge the life-seizing immortal, even a heaven and earth-flying immortal. Alas, he did not even get to see the face of the life-seizing immortal, being suppressed by his disciple. This battle was watched by countless cultivators and demons. Not all beings wished to flee this region of the mortal world, especially sects that followed the righteous path, shouldering the responsibility to protect all living beings. Over the past decade, more than once had heaven and earth-flying immortals challenged the life-seizing immortal, each time without exception being overwhelmed by the life-seizing immortal's disciple. Advancing to the tower had become a mere wishful thinking. The name of life-seizing immortal's pagoda spread far and wide. Known as the soul-calming pagoda, it was also an immortal path's supreme treasure. Guan shook his head as he watched, the defeat of the heaven and earth-flying immortal obvious, proving that he was not the savior of this region of the mortal world. He turned and went downstairs, feeling a presence entering the valley. It was the Holy Mother of Western Spirit from the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. The Holy Mother had found Shinzhi, taking him to a secluded corner to speak, for which Shinzhi had even set up a restriction. Inside the Supreme Sect, no one's divine sense could penetrate the barrier created by Shinzhi's restriction, except for Guan. Did you get that clear? Shinzhi asked, referring to matters concerning the Great Cold Demon sect. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit took a deep breath and said, "This matter involves a holy king from the Holy Court, and though he cannot represent the entire decision of the Holy Court, this holy king has far-reaching connections and even the Buddhism sect does not wish to offend. After all, no one knows when Xingtian will emerge from seclusion." Holy King. Shinzhi frowned and then asked, "What in this region of the mortal world could be of interest to a being like the Holy King?" The Holy Mother responded, "I am not entirely sure myself. I only found out that it has something to do with the reincarnation of a great power from the Holy Court. That great power might be a rival of the Holy King, reincarnated here in this region of the mortal world." Shinzhi's frown deepened. Looking at him, the Holy Mother continued, "The situation has gone beyond redeeming. The Buddhism sect does not wish to risk involvement. Let's head back soon." Shinzhi scoffed. "The Buddhism sect doesn't want to risk involvement? What a joke! Whatever happened to universal salvation?" The Holy Mother was taken aback by Shinzhi's tone, clearly detecting the sarcasm in it. Something was off. Shinzhi, who used to take pride in being part of the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect, had never spoken this way before. "You go back, I am staying at the Supreme Sect," Shinzhi stated seriously. The Holy Mother wanted to persuade him otherwise, but Shinzhi took his leave with determined steps. What has actually happened? The Holy Mother stared at Shinzhi's departing figure, filled with confusion. Her cultivation level was lower than Shinzhi's, and her status was not as prominent, so she couldn't forcefully take Shinzhi back. Thus, she refrained from further persuasion and could only take the news back to the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. Elsewhere, Guan, walking towards a certain garden area, was also pondering the intelligence brought by the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. Holy King, reincarnation of a great power. Upon hearing about the reincarnation of a great power, his first thought was Ji Xiaoyu. However, upon reflection, it might not be Ji Xiaoyu. Ji Xiaoyu had reincarnated countless times, and if it truly were the rival of that Holy King, why hadn't the Holy King acted sooner? Moreover, he was curious about which role the Master of Divine Exotic Realm played in this feud. Perhaps he needed to seek an opportunity to discuss this with the Master of Divine Exotic Realm. Inside a dimly lit chamber, Zhang Buku put down his great axe. The strength energy around him began to dissipate, and his constantly swirling white hair gradually settled. He exhaled deeply, eyeing the great axe in his hand, his brow slightly furrowed. At that moment, footsteps approached. Zhang Buku clenched the axe tightly, causing it to vanish as he turned to look toward the entrance of the cave. He saw the Master of Divine Exotic Realm approaching slowly, and perhaps it was Zhang Buku's illusion, but he felt the Master seemed weaker than before. "Master." Zhang Buku raised his hand in greeting and spoke. Throughout these years, the Master of Divine Exotic Realm had been conscientious in teaching him. At least Zhang Buku believed the Master truly treated him like a direct disciple, not only instructing him in cultivation but occasionally also bringing him heavenly materials and treasures to enhance his ghost body and resist the backlash of exotic forces. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm stopped before him, sizing him up, and nodded slightly, saying, "Not bad, you are mastering the exotic powers." Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask, "Master, are you all right?" The Master of Divine Exotic Realm revealed a smile, though it was a chilling one as he said, "Master is naturally fine, but there is something I need to ask of you, may I?" "What is it?" Zhang Buku did not agree immediately but asked instead, his mind alert as he feared the Master of Divine Exotic Realm might be plotting against the mysterious being that had been helping him in secret. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm lifted his right hand, within which a golden flame appeared, the light brightening the chamber. Zhang Buku's expression shifted slightly as he stared at the golden flame, unable to look away. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm spoke, "This is the 9 profound true fire, a flame of an extraordinary being. After inheriting it, you will possess a divine skill that will help you survive better. When you encounter the reincarnation of that being, the 9 profound true fire will act uniquely, letting you know at that time." "Who is that being?" Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm responded, "He is a being whose cultivation far surpasses mine, and his status in the mortal world is beyond your imagination. I am passing this flame to you, hoping that you will find him in the future and protect him as much as possible. He will be the chance for us to overturn our fate." Zhang Buku was stunned. The master of divine exotic realm looked at the flame in his hand, his gaze wandering, then said, "The truth is, my existence is also for dealing with this being. But now that my backing is prepared to forsake me, I have no choice but to turn against it." Zhang Buku frowned and asked, "Master, who is your backing?" The master of divine exotic realm sighed, "It is an existence that can manipulate beings at will, akin to an immortal god in the hearts of the masses. Not only me but many forces serve him, including the continent you come from. The holy land of the seven-star spirit realm also serves him and helped me break the heaven and earth barriers, opening up the sea-breaking rift." The seven-star spirit realm. Zhang Buku naturally knew of this power. He hadn't imagined that the long-destroyed seven-star spirit realm was still connected to the sea-breaking rift. "Well, I can't tell you too much, lest you invoke temporarily insurmountable karma. Just remember, when you encounter someone that causes the 9 profound true fire to act unusually, you must support him. He will be the greatest opportunity you will ever encounter, and the only hope for you to be free of exotic forces," the master of divine exotic realm said, squinting at Zhang Buku with a serious look. Zhang Buku frowned and asked, "And what about you, master?" The master of divine exotic realm placed his palm on Zhang Buku's chest, injecting the 9 profound true fire into his body. The true fire wafted, numerous sparks flashing across the master of divine exotic realm's face, making his expression look even more terrifying. He spoke in a sinister tone, "I have become a discarded piece, and fate has already presented itself before my eyes." Zhang Buku opened his mouth to say something, but the raging 9 profound true fire surged through his body, rendering him speechless. Soon his consciousness drifted into confusion. In a grand hall flickering with firelight, an old man in a black robe sat on a lotus pedestal, which was a black lotus swirling with dark red flames. He had a powerful presence, his unbound hair adding to his imposing aura. Looking up at the ceiling of the grand hall, one could see dark red flames churning like an inverted ocean, constantly surging. This was inside the soul-calming pagoda. And this black-robed old man was the life-seizing immortal of the great cold demon sect. Suddenly the life-seizing immortal spoke, "Disciple, put some pressure on them." His voice echoed within the hall, as if many people were shouting in unison. Soon a voice came from outside the hall, "Yes." Simultaneously. At the top of the soul-calming pagoda, a white-robed Taoist who had been meditating slowly stood up. Holding a horsetail whisk, he was tall and emaciated with white hair arranged under a Taoist hat. He looked down at the vast sea, his expression indifferent. The soul-calming pagoda was located directly above the sea-breaking rift, a massive rift that stretched dozens of miles wide with no visible ends. The white-robed Taoist looked into the distance, raised his left hand to his mouth and began to chant softly. As he chanted, visible ripples spread out in the space around him. Seconds later, his right hand suddenly waved the whisk. With this motion, the seas on either side of the sea-breaking rift abruptly rose, forming towering waves with the potential to engulf the heavens. He waved the whisk again, and the terrifying waves on both sides swept uncontrollably toward the distance. After doing all of this, the white-robed Taoist paused, then looked up at the sky and waved his whisk toward the heavens 3 times. At dusk, Guan rode on the blood prison Great Saint into the entrance of the Third Medicine Valley, followed by Yang Jian and Li Lingtian, who walked behind with a bruised face, resembling a defeated rooster. "Master, won't this lad be ruined?" the blood prison Great Saint couldn't help but ask. His tone was not one of concern but rather filled with mockery. Li Lingtian, hearing this, glared at him. Guan spoke, "If he can't endure, he can leave on his own." Years ago, when he had visited Tianya Valley, Luo Hun had even asked him to bring a message, hoping Li Lingtian would return to the palace. However, Li Lingtian did not wish to go back. Although he often got beaten, he was indeed getting stronger. Defeating Yang Jian had become his obsession. Just as Li Lingtian was about to speak, he suddenly sensed something and looked up, his eyes widening in shock. Guan, Yang Jian, and the blood prison Great Saint all looked up, and the disciples in the valley did the same, their expressions increasingly changing, as if they were witnessing something terrifying. Chapter 289. Unbelievable Methods. At dusk, the sky was a fiery red as meteors from outer space streaked across, creating a magnificent scene. As these meteors fell, a vast heavenly fire descended, giving all beings the feeling that the sky was collapsing. What is that? How can there be such a huge fire in the sky? Will it affect us? Don't worry, we are within the Supreme Sect, protected by the Sect Protecting Formation. Could it be the demon cultivators from the Great Cold Demon Sect causing trouble? The disciples within the Third Medicine Valley engaged in a heated discussion, and the great cultivators who had been playing chess stood up and vanished from their spots. The nine-fingered Divine Lord looked up, frowning. Sitting opposite him, stealing the 5 elements, remarked, "This divine power is no ordinary feat." The nine-fingered Divine Lord looked at stealing the 5 elements and asked, "You've been traveling a lot these years, what exactly have you been searching for?" Facing his inquiry, stealing the 5 elements did not respond but simply pointed upwards towards the sky. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the valley, Guan was riding on the back of the blood prison Great Saint, also looking at the sky. He could feel that the meteors and the sea of fire in the sky were transformations of mana, deployed by someone possessing great divine power at the heaven and earth flying immortal level, affecting a vast area. It seemed that the century-old agreement was merely an ultimatum. During this period, the Great Cold Demon Sect would continue to attack, forcing the common people to flee. Of course, there was another possibility that they sought to force out a specific individual they were searching for. Due to personal vengeance, the commoners suffered, giving Guan a different understanding of the Holy Court. The Holy Court overall had good intentions, but inevitably had its corrupt members. Perhaps their way of thinking differed from Guan's. They could protect the common people but also ignore them. Yang Jian glanced at Guan and seeing his calm demeanor, he felt reassured. With his master around, even if the sky fell, he wouldn't be afraid. Li Lingtian approached Yang Jian and discussed the strange phenomenon in the sky with him. Guan patted the back of the blood prison Great Saint, signaling him to move forward. As the blood prison Great Saint took a step, a light curtain rose in the horizon, visible in all directions. It was the Supreme Sect's sect protecting Great Formation. That was quick. Guan was secretly pleased. The Supreme Sect had not faced tribulations in many years, yet remaining vigilant indicated that the high ranks weren't overly dependent on Sword Venerable Fudao. Soon, the entire Supreme Sect was enveloped by the light curtain of the sect protecting Great Formation, providing relief to all the cultivators within. Various sects and cities across the world activated their large formations, but inevitably, there were places that remained unprotected, and many beings in those places were vulnerable. In the North Sea Mountains, at the Mountain God Temple, Sage Xian Miao sat on the ground, gazing at the strange phenomenon in the sky, furrowing his brows. His concern was not for his safety, but rather for the well-being of the common people across the world. How could mere mortals withstand this sweeping blaze? Sage Xian Miao turned to look at a stone statue in the courtyard, one he had carved himself depicting the mountain god. Although he saw the mountain god once a month, in his heart he always felt a great distance from the divine. He turned back and began to kowtow to the divine statue of the mountain god. As meteorites continued plunging towards the earth, the fire enveloping the sky drew closer, intensifying the fiery hue between heaven and earth. Just then, all the flowers, plants, and trees across the continent emitted flickers of green light, swiftly rising upward like sparks growing stronger rapidly. A farmer clutching a hoe in the mountains was surrounded by the green light coming from all directions, causing him to panic. In the cities, terrified civilians saw trees within their courtyards trembling and releasing green light orbs that floated up towards the sky. Within the palace, Li Xiandao stood at the entrance of the imperial study, observing the unusual appearance of the flora, his expression subtle. At that moment, beings across the continent, including demons, were startled by the surrounding phenomena, as flowers, plants, and trees were ubiquitous. In the Third Medicine Valley, Guan dismounted and looked around. The vegetation within the Supreme Sect hadn't emitted green light, so the disciples were all puzzled by the phenomenon in the sky, unaware of another spectacular sight beyond the Supreme Sect. However, as the green light from plants everywhere rose to a certain height, even the cultivators inside the Supreme Sect could see it. Various discussions erupted among them. Guan stood under a pavilion watching this scenario unfold. Xiaoyu also emerged from the house and joined him. "It seems someone is protecting this continent," Xiaoyu said, her eyes reflecting the green light rising to meet the massive inferno falling from the sky, as if two worlds were about to collide in a mesmerizing display. The upper half of Guan's face was illuminated by the fire, while the lower half was tinged with green. He asked in astonishment, "You mean to say a cultivator is behind this? How high must their cultivation level be?" Xiaoyu gave Guan a look, although she didn't think Guan had a vast cultivation. But this guy couldn't be this clueless. Guan often brought Yang Jian out, who was growing rapidly, showing that Guan was not simple. Regardless of what Guan concealed, his knowledge was not something ordinary cultivators could match. Perhaps it was Sword Venerable Fudao who made a move, Xiaoyu said softly, her gaze returning to the horizon. Good guess. Guan mentally gave Xiaoyu a thumbs up, his eyes still fixed on the sky. Under the gaze of all beings on the continent, the vast green light collided with the sea of fire, and following a brief somber moment, the sky radiated intensely bright light, like endless fireworks exploding. After the brief silence, the earth trembled and strong winds fell from the sky, though not enough to threaten the land and mountains. The creatures across the land all sighed in relief, now understanding that the mysterious green light was there to protect them, to block the descending heavenly fire. However, they didn't know that not all continents and islands had protectors. Guan protected only the continent he was on, and while the beings there were excited and grateful, countless others perished in despair. At the soul-calming pagoda atop the pagoda, a white-robed Taoist suddenly opened his eyes, expressing surprise with a grunt. He attempted to divine the situation but couldn't make any accurate predictions, his expression growing increasingly bizarre. He suddenly became interested and then vanished from the spot. Far away in the Supreme Sect, Guan was chatting with Xiaoyu when he suddenly sensed a rapidly approaching presence, sighing involuntarily. Why must someone always be looking for death? I'm going to check on Mystic Valley, we'll talk later, Guan said, heading towards the transmission array platform. Xiaoyu was not puzzled and looked up at the sky alone, admiring the powerful divine skills of Sword Venerable Fudao. Underneath a nearby tree, stealing the 5 elements and the 9-fingered Divine Lord, sitting opposite each other at a chessboard, also looked up at the sky, paying no attention to Guan stealing the 5 elements, spoke. The trouble has ultimately been drawn here, the guy has arrived. The 9-fingered Divine Lord turned to him asking, who is this guy? A pupil of life-seizing immortal, the real person Bai Hong, a renowned genius from the great cold demon sect, with unfathomable cultivation, stealing the 5 elements, responded. The 9-fingered Divine Lord's face subtly changed. Clearly, he had heard of Bai Hong's name. Stealing the 5 elements, chuckled. There's going to be a show to watch. Geniuses all have one flaw, excess confidence. Not far off, Shinxinzi, while staring at the sky, was also listening to stealing the 5 elements conversation. He couldn't help but think of the hand that had been placed on his shoulder that night and began to sympathize with Bai Hong. There were many hidden great powers in the world, no matter the cultivation level, one should never underestimate this world. This was the greatest realization Shinxinzi had after leaving the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. In another place, under the red dawn sky, Bai Hong rapidly flew through, unfazed by the sweeping fire, as he passed over vast expanses of water without looking down. His gaze had fixed on a distant continent. Within his divine range, many great cultivators were resisting his divine power to protect various beings. Yet, that particular continent was special, its methods piqued his interest, and moreover, he was unable to deduce the cause and effect of its mana. Perhaps the individual behind it was related to the person his master sought. Thinking of this, Bai Hong's eyes gleamed with anticipation. He was acting not only on behalf of his master but also to seize an opportunity for himself. Snap! A hand suddenly pressed onto his shoulder, bringing his full-speed flight to an immediate halt, causing his mana and chi blood to surge chaotically, and he even felt a strong discomfort as if his primordial spirit was about to leave his body. When he tried to break free, he was horrified to discover that he had lost control over his body and soul. He couldn't even achieve primordial spirit emergence, which made him widen his eyes and instinctively panic. In an instant, Bai Hong theorized many possibilities. Bai Hong, a 150,908-year-old 9 layers of heaven and earth flying immortal, is lamentable to die here. Guan looked at Bai Hong's lifespan and thought so. Guan didn't employ his soul-capturing skill but prepared to directly annihilate Bai Hong. He intentionally allowed Bai Hong to wait for a few moments to fully experience this despair, which also served as a punishment for his crimes. Bai Hong felt the pressure on his shoulder lessen and was about to speak when the hand suddenly tightened. With a squeeze from Guan, Bai Hong instantly turned to ash, his soul dispersing without a sound. He then disappeared from the spot. Back in the forest around Mystic Valley, Guan pretended to inspect medicinal herbs, and a notification popped up before his eyes. He successfully seized 38,000 years of lifespan. Not too bad. Guan wasn't worried about life-seizing immortal coming for revenge. If he came, Guan would kill him. Could the carefree primordial immortal threaten the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma? If a stronger presence appeared and he was uncertain of his chances, he would flee. So far, it seemed unlikely that the Holy King would make a move as it would hurt his image. Otherwise, why wouldn't he personally search for his enemy's reincarnation? Being able to summon the great cold demon sect showed that the Holy King had his reservations. The sea of fire in the sky lasted for 30 minutes before completely dissipating. The green light enveloping the continent transformed into a sea of clouds, dispersing with the wind, and night fell. Although the world had darkened, the spirits of all beings remained unsettled for a long time. When Guan returned to the third medicine valley, Xiaoyu had already returned to her house. He could only join a group of disciples gathered in the chess-playing area, who were discussing the earlier phenomena. With stealing the 5 elements and the 9-fingered Divine Lord present, the disciples could greatly expand their knowledge and also learn about the incredible methods of Sword Venerable Fudao. Chapter 290, The Identity of the Senior Inside the Soul-Calming Pagoda. Life-seizing immortal opened his eyes, a frown creasing his brow, his eyes filled with doubt and suspicion. Why has his aura ceased? Life-seizing immortal began to cast spells and calculate. He did not consider the possibility that Bai Hong had really died. After all, he knew how high his disciple's cultivation level was. Within the same realm, Bai Hong had the power to suppress 3 divine exotic ghost kings single-handedly, which showed how terrifying his strength was. Even if he encountered a carefree primordial immortal, he would not die without a trace. However, no matter how he calculated, he could not deduce Bai Hong's whereabouts. Bai Hong's karmic ties were still fading away. This indicated that Bai Hong had most likely fallen, and moreover, had been scattered to the winds, with the heaven and earth rules erasing the marks of his existence. Life-seizing immortal's eyebrows knitted tightly together, his heart filled with shock and anger. Had a carefree primordial immortal made a move? To achieve such a feat, it would certainly not be a low-level carefree primordial immortal. The first thing life-seizing immortal thought of was a being from the Holy Court. How could such a formidable existence hide in this mortal world region? In life-seizing immortal's mind, the strongest beings in this mortal world region were at most in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. The sects here merely touched upon powers from outer heaven. A master of divine exotic realm was sufficient to suppress this mortal world region for so many years. How could a carefree primordial immortal possibly be lurking here? Wait. Life-seizing immortal suddenly thought of the 7-star spirit realm. Although his impression of the 7-star spirit realm was mediocre, he had some recollection. The 7-star spirit realm had always curried favor with the Holy King he supported. The Holy King disdained the 7-star spirit realm, but some under the Holy King had received benefits from the 7-star spirit realm. To some extent, one could say the 7-star spirit realm was a force on the same side as him. He remembered a Taoist friend mentioning that the 7-star spirit realm had sought help before. However, the Taoist friend thought the 7-star spirit realm was not significant enough to warrant his intervention, so he assigned them a task. Consequently, just as the 7-star spirit realm had assisted the divine exotic realm's emergence, it was dismantled because some residual forces still existed, so his Taoist friend didn't think much of it, assuming it was just a local power struggle. Now it occurred to him, could it be that this mortal world region was hiding something? Could it have something to do with that reincarnated being? Life-seizing immortal's eyes flickered, not with fear but with a hint of delight. The massacre of the common people was not his main goal. All of this was to force out the reincarnated being. Now that signs had begun to show, how could he not be pleased? Immediately he took out an ancient bronze oil lamp and cast spells towards the wick. It's time to call the old fogies together. The catastrophe triggered by Bai Hong had consequences far and wide, its extent immeasurable. The continent where the supreme sect resided was spared from catastrophe, leading many sects to speculate that it was Sword Venerable Fudao's doing, causing his name to spread like wildfire across the continent once again. When the beings of the continent were excited and in awe, the sea was deadly silent. Numerous islands and landmasses had been turned into seas of fire. Could ordinary immortal cultivation sects withstand divine powers unleashed by Bai Hong? Even if the sects formed their formations in time, they could not hold back the sky-high flames. This was one of the reasons Guan had taken action. This heavenly fire caused 1/3 of all creatures in the mortal world region to die, a staggeringly large number. After the disaster had passed on the 7th day, Guan came alone to a mortal-seeking island, where the atmosphere within was grave, with significantly fewer cultivators coming and going, and a tense mood pervading the streets. Judging by the buildings within the city, it had not suffered from the heavenly fire's onslaught, but the surrounding seascape was littered with countless dead fish and demonic creatures, showing that immortal-seeking island was within the reach of the heavenly fire as well. The divine skills of a heaven and earth flying immortal were enough to obliterate all beings. Guan called over Hu Shaojin, who heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing him. "Elder, I'm so glad you've come." Hu Xiaojian's tone held a hint of resentment. 7 days earlier he truly thought he was going to die on immortal-seeking island. Though he had a narrow escape, he trembled with fear every day, dreading the sudden arrival of another catastrophe. Guan teased, "That scared?" Hu Shaojin nodded, "How could I not be? Did you see that great fire? It was terrifying, blotting out the sky. Just imagining the cultivation level of the person behind it scares me." He wanted to say it might far surpass that of a loose immortal, for there were many loose immortals on immortal-seeking island, and he had occasionally witnessed loose immortals in combat, which allowed him to make comparisons. But then he thought of Guan being a loose immortal and immediately held his tongue. "Don't worry," Guan consoled, "evil has never triumphed over good. The person behind the scenes will definitely face retribution. In fact, the orchestrator of this catastrophe, Bai Hong, was already dead." The reason Guan had come so late was to guard against a sudden assault from life-seizing immortal on the Supreme Sect. Life-seizing immortal had not shown up, and given his capabilities, he must have known of Bai Hong's demise. His absence likely meant he was plotting something. Guan felt there was a good chance he was shaking the tree to see what falls. The Great Cold Demon Sect, after all, was a colossal force in the world, with countless cultivators whose numbers were difficult to estimate. Later, Guan followed Hu Shaojin around to learn the situation on Immortal-Seeking Island. According to Hu Shaojin, after experiencing this calamity, the island master was clearly planning to abandon Immortal-Seeking Island. He had already instructed people to transport part of his property and disciples away, and within the Sea Protection Mansion, everyone was in a state of panic, with cultivators like Hu Shaojin unsure of where to go. Previously, Immortal-Seeking Island was their home and their greatest support. The Sea Protection Mansion would not take them with them. After hearing this, Guan did not offer an opinion but asked Hu Shaojin to take him to purchase medicinal herbs, which made Hu Shaojin even more nervous. He feared this was Guan's last visit to Immortal-Seeking Island. An hour later, the two arrived at Hu Xiaojian's courtyard, and after Guan sat down, Hu Shaojin immediately poured wine for him. Guan did not refuse, and his attitude made Hu Shaojin feel somewhat more at ease. Only after Hu Shaojin had poured the wine did Guan speak. "Rest assured, I truly wish to obtain Immortal-Seeking Island. Soon, I will send a wandering immortal to take over Immortal-Seeking Island, and then your standing within the Sea Protection Mansion will rise. You, on the other hand, should diligently cultivate so in the future you can be worthy of a high position." "Wandering immortal?" Hu Shaojin trembled slightly, tentatively asking, "Elder, might I know who you truly are?" Guan, being only with a loose immortal cultivation level but able to invite a wandering immortal, suggested that Guan had the backing of a great power. This was a pleasant surprise for Hu Shaojin. No matter how strong one person was, they could not compete with a vast force. Guan replied, "It's better for you not to inquire about my identity. Knowing too much is of no benefit to you. Even if we truly can't withstand an attack from life-seizing immortal in the future, I will take you away. I have a place where you can live in peace. However, before that happens, I want to take a gamble. What if a great power manifests from the sea to crush that life-seizing immortal?" Hu Shaojin nodded vigorously. Whatever the case, his job was to cling to Guan's coattails. Of course, deep down he believed life-seizing immortal was unbeatable. The previous heavenly fire had left too deep of a scar on his psyche, and thinking about it still frightened him. "Elder, what do you need me to do now?" Hu Shaojin asked respectfully. Chapter 291. Do you want to join the Great Cold Demon Sect? Guan had stayed in Hu Xiaojian's residence for an ancient hour. After he left, Hu Shaojin was brimming with excitement, and his face was a bouquet of smiles. The predecessor had entrusted him with so many matters, which assuredly meant he wouldn't easily forsake Immortal-Seeking Island. He hadn't deceived him. Moreover, what need had the predecessor to deceive him? He was just a minor cultivator at the nascent soul realm. If the predecessor wished not to take him, a single stern glance would have sufficed to silence any further pleas from him. Meanwhile, Guan had returned to the premises of the Supreme Sect, pondering as he walked into the third medicine valley, which wandering immortal should assist him. Wandering immortals were not minor cultivators. How could one easily control them? The nine-fingered divine lord was not an option, for Guan feared exposing himself, given that the nine-fingered divine lord had been to Immortal Seeking Island. Neither Shinzi nor stealing the 5 elements were reliable. Guan was not in a rush. There was still time. If need be, he could use the Mortal Jade to sway someone, asking Mortal World Peak to dispatch a wandering immortal to Immortal Seeking Island to assist him. Now as the Peak Master of Mortal World Peak, which was rivaled only by Great Cold Demon Sect in strength, and surpassed it in heritage, he felt Mortal World Peak would not fear the Great Cold Demon Sect. The Great Cold Demon Sect needed to do the Holy Court's dirty work to survive, whereas Mortal World Peak was different. It could hold office in the Holy Court. Over the long years, Mortal World Peak had sent how many immortals to the Holy Court? Guan believed Mortal World Peak would not fear the Great Cold Demon Sect. Of course, Mortal World Peak would not oppose Great Cold Demon Sect unless sufficient benefits tempted them to dare offend both the sect and its backing, the Holy King. Reflecting on this, Guan suddenly felt sentimental. No matter how high one's cultivation realm, one could not escape the web of relationships and favors. Only those strong enough to disregard the entire immortal path could act recklessly and willfully. The karmic ties of the world were too complex, with the karma of all beings interlinked in a tangled mesh. Even the weakest beings, when followed through their karmic associations, were connected to immensely powerful entities. Guan surveyed Medicine Valley and did not spot Nine-Fingered Divine Lord or stealing the 5 elements, but found Shinzi, who was engrossed in studying Journey to the West. He could not understand Shinzin's fascination with Journey to the West, and felt that he had grown increasingly distant from the Bitter Sea Buddha sect, barely mentioning Buddhism these days. Guan did not disturb Shinzi but instead headed towards his loft. Compared to worrying about the affairs of the world, what to read next concerned him more. With strange occurrences being commonplace in books through the ages. Recently, Guan took pleasure in reading histories. 5 years later, 210-year-old Guan practiced his exercises in Mystic Valley and glanced at his attribute panel, realizing he was short just under 600,000 years from a 2 billion-year lifespan compared to others' understanding of their own cultivation level. Guan felt a greater sense of achievement watching those numbers of lifespan. But was it really just lifespan? These numbers were clearly his cultivation. After morning practice, Lu Jiujia approached Guan, seeking guidance on the primordial reincarnation skill. Since lifting his cultivation restriction, his maximum lifespan had broken through to 410 years. Consequently, Guan taught him a more potent primordial reincarnation skill. Despite his diligent practice over the many years, he still had much to learn about the technique. Guan listened and then patiently guided him, enlightening Lu Jiujia with a few words, which left him thrilled. Through the primordial reincarnation skill, he was sure his senior brother was no ordinary person and clearly also practiced this cultivation technique. With the access to medicinal herbs his senior brother had, he was bound to far surpass him. After imparting his advice, Guan turned and departed. Lu Jiujia didn't follow, instead standing still and savoring his words. Guan walked into the forest and followed the path leading to the 8 scenic caves. By now, the 8 scenic caves were no longer a secret needing concealment, with Lu Jiujia aware of his secret abode beneath Mystic Valley. Given the chance, Lu Jiujia would watch over the disciples entering the forest, anxious lest any covet his senior brother's cave. Mystic Valley was never short of spies. Guan arrived within the 8 scenic caves, first picking ripe medicinal herbs, then directing the poison corpse to plant anew. The origins of myriad poison mystic skill left by Jiang Qiong had started to bear fruit. Although he couldn't exploit the poison corpse to seize life from the herbs, sowing was straightforward without too much concern. He lay down under a green vine tree, and quickly 2 tendrils stretched over his shoulders and began massaging them. The green vine tree possessed spiritual wisdom, but on ordinary days, it preferred silence. Guan didn't press it, rather he relished the tranquility of life in the 8 scenic caves. Accustomed to life in Medicine Valley, taking the time to be alone in the 8 scenic caves was also enjoyable. He planned to stay overnight as someone would visit him that evening. After finding a comfortable position, he pulled out a history book purchased from Immortal Seeking Island, recording the rise and fall of a powerful force. Time swiftly passed. Until late at night, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Guan remained seated and did not even cast a glance that way. Soon, a figure approached him, accompanied by a faint fragrance. The visitor stood with her hands on her hips, clad in an exquisite purple robe, ornate with jade beads on her belt. Her long hair casually tied and 2 wooden hairpins inserted, her celestial beauty cloaked behind errant strands of black hair, a subtle smile adorning her face, and her eyes sparkling with mischievous delight. Guan lifted his head to look at her, appraising her, then chuckled, "Long time no see. How is it you seem younger? Did you practice some forbidden art?" The person standing before him was none other than Jiang Qiong, the creator of the 8 scenic caves. Juhua sect, founded by Jiang Qiong, was now a top sect in the immortal cultivation world, even collaborating with the Supreme Sect. Of course, Juhua sect's overall strength didn't yet match the Supreme Sect. "What nonsense, your martial master already appears youthful." Jiang Qiong glared at Guan, then slid off her shoes, placing her bare feet on the grass. She stretched languidly and sighed. "This place still feels comfortable after so many years. Just like home." Guan stood up and chuckled, "I've kept that coffin of yours. Want to lie inside for a while? Looking for a beating?" Jiang Qiong raised her hand to strike Guan, who promptly dodged. She huffed and then inquired, "Little brat, feeling anxious lately?" Guan asked curiously, "Why would you think so? The life-seizing immortal from the Great Cold Demon sect declared he would wipe out all life. How can you not be anxious? You're the one who fears death the most." "Well, sure, it is worrying, but what use is angst? When the sky falls, there are tall ones like you to hold it up." Guan spread his hands and spoke, eliciting a chuckle from Jiang Qiong, seeing him still as light-hearted as ever. Jiang Qiong took a step closer and whispered, "Would you like to join the Great Cold Demon sect?" Guan gave her a peculiar look. He didn't always keep an eye on Jiang Qiong, only sending his divine sense her way occasionally when she came to mind. Upon sensing no danger, he would swiftly retract his focus. He hadn't expected Jiang Qiong to establish ties with the Great Cold Demon sect. How did she manage that? Guan began to explore Jiang Qiong's karmic ties while asking, "You know someone from the Great Cold Demon sect?" A flood of karmic images entered Guan's vision as he saw her past. It turned out, the continent from which the ephemera sect hailed was under the thumb of the Great Cold Demon sect, which was why the 7-star spirit realm dared not use 9 Nether Road to reach the other worlds. There, the Great Cold Demon sect was sovereign while the ephemera sect was merely a regional sect. No comparison between the two could be made. According to the ghost mother of ephemera's words to Jiang Qiong, the decline of the ephemera sect was influenced by the Great Cold Demon sect. Long ago, that continent did not belong to the Great Cold Demon sect. Following the unification, Juhua sect, like other sects, shared access to the 9 Nether Road, which allowed the ghost mother to return to her roots, with Jiang Qiong bridging connections through her to the Great Cold Demon sect. The ghost mother knew a great cultivator within the Great Cold Demon sect. A great cultivator with only Mahayana realm cultivation, likely a lowly figure within the sect. Although Sword Venerable Fudao has recently protected the continent, how can his soul strength contend with the Great Cold Demon sect? He did not charge me with any tasks, so I deliberately returned to take you to the Great Cold Demon sect. What harm in cultivating medicinal herbs there? By joining the Great Cold Demon sect, that too could be arranged, Jiang Qiong earnestly suggested. Guan felt moved yet amused. Why did she always flip sides so easily? Guan shook his head. "No thanks. How comfortable could I be, tending herbs in the powerful Great Cold Demon sect? Perhaps no sooner than joining would I be refined into an elixir. That's a demon sect." Jiang Qiong glared at him, annoyed. "With me around, who could dare to bully you? Are you highly cultivated? Surely not among the highest in the Great Cold Demon sect. But to protect you? More than enough. Just calmly stay with me then." "So I'd have to wait on you, curry favor with you?" "Exactly, how about that? Right now my feet are a bit sore, come give me a rub." Spit shameless. Guan would never agree. A man might be slain but not insulted. Looking down, his face betraying disgust, he noted that Jiang Qiong's feet, which she had only bared moments ago, were already stained with mud and grass. Jiang Qiong watched Guan's stubborn reaction, amused and keen to tease further, but she first needed to address serious matters. She spoke gravely, "Guan, this time it's different. The Great Cold Demon sect has sent vast numbers of cultivators here, their might unmatched by 7-star spirit realm or star sea congregations. Even star sea congregations contemplates retreat. Not to mention them, do you know about 9 Nether Road? Almost every sect on this continent has members desiring to flee through 9 Nether Road, including your supreme sect." Guan fell silent. Jiang Qiong continued, Actually, joining the Great Cold Demon sect might not be ill-fated. Perhaps you'd even discover great opportunities. While innate aptitude is fated, there are plenty in this world who turn their lives around with later-day fortunes. Don't you desire the pursuit of eternal life? Guan gazed at her, replying, "Thanks for your kindness, but I truly don't want to go. There are too many things and people here that I cannot abandon. As for fortunes you mentioned, when has this world ever offered fortune free from danger? Even venturing into the 8 scenic caves once nearly brought me peril." Hearing this, Jiang Qiong grew frustrated. Why was this boy so stubborn? Guan added, "Moreover, I feel this catastrophe might not be insurmountable. I believe in Sword Venerable Fudao, believe in the triumph of good over evil. Surely, there are many great powers in this world who can stand against the Great Cold Demon sect. I often read books, and don't they all say if man will strive then heaven will thrive? The Great Cold Demon sect, which treats life so wantonly no matter how powerful, will eventually meet its reckoning. Aligning with them is not a righteous path." With that, he raised the book in his hand with a determined expression. Chapter 292. The world has changed. Hearing Guan's words, Jiang Qiong fell into silence. She felt somewhat lost inside. She had always been faced with choices. She had escaped from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion to the Supreme Sect, then from the Supreme Sect to the Nine Nether Road, and even after establishing the Juhua sect, she still had to flee to the Great Cold Demon sect? Could it be that all her choices had been wrong? It seemed that no matter when she returned, Guan never changed. Guan saw the mood she was in. He was afraid of saying too much. After all, she didn't have the confidence he did. How could he judge everyone by his own standards? "My nature dictates that I cannot travel far and wide. You are much stronger than I am. You can go on adventures, but you must never fully trust anyone, especially the demon sect," Guan said. Jiang Qiong snapped to attention upon hearing this. What was she thinking? If she hadn't fled, she'd already be dead. Even compared with Guan, her cultivation level was rising rapidly. Although the path seemed difficult and bitter, her cultivation was her achievement. She was now at the 7th floor of the divinity transformation realm. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiong smiled. She glared at Guan and said, "You've refused me time and again. Be careful or I might stop caring about you. When you run into trouble and think of me, it will be too late." Guan solemnly said, "As long as you are safe, it doesn't matter if you forget about me. Meeting and knowing each other in this life is a destiny forged over 100 lifetimes." Touched by his words, Jiang Qiong thought to herself, this brat knows how to talk. If his cultivation were higher, how many girls of heavenly pride would he lead astray? Of course, she believed that Guan truly thought this way and wasn't just trying to please her. After knowing him for so many years, she never heard Guan ask her for anything. Jiang Qiong looked at Guan, wanting to tease him, but no words could pass her throat. That's because this time the situation was truly different. She felt that Guan had underestimated the power of the Great Cold Demon sect. Indeed, in the past few years, when the heavenly fire calamity that covered the skies was blocked by Sword Venerable Fudao, the common beings on the mainland did not see the tragic scenes over the seas, where many creatures died in agony. The one who had acted was only a cultivator from the Great Cold Demon sect, and now, a large group of cultivators from the Great Cold Demon sect was on their way. Just the thought filled her with despair, seeing no glimmer of hope for victory. Who in the world could stand against the colossal presence of the Great Cold Demon sect like this? Jiang Qiong looked at Guan's gentle smiling face and suddenly felt a pang of heartache. Silly boy, what is written in books is not necessarily true. Indeed, since ancient times, good has triumphed over evil, but if evil wins, it can become the new good. Jiang Qiong did not immediately leave after returning but stayed within the 8 scenic caves. Guan would visit her every other day, each time trying various ways to persuade him, whether by tempting him with legends of the Great Cold Demon sect or by teaching him spells. Guan steadfastly refused, but since he didn't want to confront her directly, they were at a stalemate. Half a month passed. The weather was still scorching hot. As Guan came down from the loft, he was confronted by Ji Xiaoyu at the foot of the stairs. "Who is that woman?" Ji Xiaoyu asked, staring at Guan. Her expression was calm, but her eyes seemed rather sharp. Guan was surprised and asked, "What woman?" "There's a scent of another woman on you." "So what if there is? What about it?" Guan didn't seem to care, chuckling. After all, in this world, it's the explanations that are suspect. The less you care, the less significant it seems. In fact, nothing had happened between him and Jiang Qiong, but he couldn't betray her by revealing her plan to defect to the Great Cold Demon Sect. Guan hadn't urged Jiang Qiong to give up on joining the Great Cold Demon Sect because he wasn't sure of the sect's strength himself. If the Great Cold Demon Sect turned out to be powerful enough that even he couldn't deal with it, he'd have to flee too. Ji Xiaoyu looked at Guan and said, "Haven't you noticed a change in the atmosphere of the mortal world?" Guan looked around and said, "How has it changed? Those who should be sweeping are sweeping, those who want to play chess are still playing chess. Look, there's even a rat leading an ox." Ji Xiaoyu followed his gaze and couldn't help but shake her head and chuckle. "Never mind, it's just as well. In life, cherishing the present is enough," she said softly before turning back to her room to continue her cultivation. Guan didn't try to retain her. Instead, he kept his gaze fixed on Medicine Valley. He saw much more than Ji Xiaoyu did, and much clearer too. Ever since the real Bai Hong displayed heavenly fire, the entire sea had been engulfed by a frenzy of escape, which gradually affected the mainland. Many noble families began to venture across the seas or rush to the Nine Nether Road. Moreover, many were spreading rumors that the Great Cold Demon Sect was about to launch a massive invasion, all of which Guan knew were minions hastily recruited by the Great Cold Demon Sect cultivators, intended to sow panic in this part of the mortal world. At the Say-breaking rift, the soul-calming pagoda was already crammed with countless cultivators from the Great Cold Demon Sect, the least of whom were at the Nirvana realm, with the number of heaven and earth flying immortals surpassing 100. Besides the life-seizing immortal, there were even 3 carefree primordial immortals. A total of 4 carefree primordial immortals. This force was absolutely overwhelming in this part of the mortal world, unstoppable. The key was that the Great Cold Demon Sect was still sending reinforcements. Guan hadn't made a move yet because he didn't know the full extent of the Great Cold Demon Sect's resources. However, he wasn't just waiting idly. He had already used his divine sense to scan the great heavenly spirit land, looking for a safe place far from this part of the mortal world. If he really couldn't stand against them, he would take everyone he cared about with him and leave, ready to start life anew. Of course, this was a last resort. It all depended on whether the Great Cold Demon Sect had a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. So far, the highest level among the carefree primordial immortals was only the 5th floor. Before a divine immortal of wondrous dharma appeared, Guan, who was at the 9th floor of the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm, wouldn't panic. After watching for a while, Guan turned and left. An ancient hour later, riding on the blood prison Great Saint, he arrived at Tianya Valley with Yang Jian and Li Lingtian following behind. Li Lingtian wore an impatient expression. It was clear he was not keen on coming to Tianya Valley. Li Xiandao was waiting inside the valley. Guan, accompanied by the 2 men, entered the courtyard where Li Xiandao was. By now, Li Lingtian's cultivation had reached the 8th floor of the core formation realm, pleasing Li Xiandao, who complimented him for not neglecting his cultivation. "Let's get one thing straight, I don't want to go back. Besides, Father Emperor, you're still in good spirits, so there's no need for me to act as the crown prince," Li Lingtian said immediately. Li Xiandao shook his head with a smile, while Guan actually found this quite amusing. Li Xiandao planned to reign as emperor for eternity. Naturally, the crown prince was the most feared threat. The only reason Li Lingtian became the crown prince was on behalf of Empress Yang and the Yang family. Li Lingtian's words made Guan look at him with newfound respect. This youngster seemed to have the wisdom of playing the fool. Li Xiandao became serious. "It's not about you returning to the palace, but to your mother's family to sail with them. There's no room for discussion. Your mother has given a strict order." Li Lingtian was taken aback. He instinctively wanted to ask why, but he quickly understood. For a time, the atmosphere in the courtyard fell silent. Li Xiandao turned to Guan and asked, "The Supreme Sect has yet to formulate a strategy. Do you want to join Lingtian in leaving?" The reason the Supreme Sect had no strategy was something Guan had heard from LV Badian. The Hall of Elders had debated multiple times about whether to evacuate, fearing that it might offend Sword Venerable Fudao, who had been willing to protect them. How could they run away now? Sword Venerable Fudao took action not for himself, but to save them, the mortal spirits. LV Badian also consulted Guan, asking his opinion on whether they should evacuate. This time Guan offered no advice. He wanted the Supreme Sect to make their own decision. If the Supreme Sect chose to flee, he certainly wouldn't follow them but would find a place to hide instead. From then on, his connection with the Supreme Sect would be severed. Guan had no burdens regarding the Supreme Sect. He owed them nothing, quite the contrary, the sect owed him a lot. "They'll pass. Let the Supreme Sect decide." "I can't leave the Supreme Sect," Guan answered. Upon hearing this, Li Lingtian quickly said, "Father Emperor, I can also—" "Shut up!" Li Xiandao barked, his eyes sharply intimidating. For a moment, Li Lingtian felt afraid. Yang Jian and the Blood Prison Great Saint looked at Li Xiandao in shock. Why did this emperor seem no ordinary man? This situation is different from before. If you follow the supreme sect to evacuate, chances are you will never see your mother again in this life. You must go back. Li Xiandao took a deep breath and said coldly. His mood had been bad all this time, had merely been suppressing it. He had worked hard for many years to secure his empire, and now a calamity threatened to destroy it. How could he not feel indignant? Yet, compared to the immense depth of the great cold demon sect, Taizong dynasty had no intention to resist. Guan looked at Li Xiandao and asked, "Uncle, what about you?" Li Lingtian turned his gaze angrily to Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao looked at his own teacup on the table and said softly, "Everyone can escape except me. Even if I have to die, let me die alongside my subjects." With so many people in the Taizong dynasty, not all could escape. If he thought of leaving, the dynasty would surely descend into chaos. Li Lingtian froze, his eyes softening as he looked at Li Xiandao. Yang Jian also grew solemn out of respect for the emperor who had gifted him a divine weapon. The Blood Prison Great Saint hadn't expected Li Xiandao to be so resolute, and he rose from his crouch in surprise. Guan addressed Li Xiandao, "Uncle, have you forgotten the goal you once sought?" Li Xiandao replied, "Without my subjects, what is an emperor's throne worth? An emperor who cannot protect his empire is bound to fail. Even if the empire were to be rebuilt, it would be meaningless." His words inspired admiration in everyone present. Luo Hun even knelt down, expressing with a heavy voice, "Your Highness, I am willing to follow and serve you unto death without regret." Li Xiandao merely waved his hand, not saying much more. Sure, he spoke sincerely, but he hadn't resigned himself to fate. He was gambling. He was betting on the sword Venerable Fudao to overturn the great cold demon sect. He couldn't forget the shock sword Venerable Fudao had brought him during past calamities. He couldn't forget that day when the skies were filled with fierce flames pressuring the living beings, and countless green lights rose up, giving him hope. He felt sword Venerable Fudao was different, a difference that perhaps even transcended cultivation levels. Despite many great cultivators in the world, he just felt that sword Venerable Fudao was the most special. From sword Venerable Fudao he sensed an aura. That was the aura of invincibility. Should sword Venerable Fudao's heart be kind, then peace would reign throughout the land. Chapter 293, How about I slice that continent in half with one sword? After staying in Qinya Valley for an ancient hour, Guan left with Blood Prison Great Saint and Yang Jian, while Li Lingtian stayed behind in Qinya Valley, as he was about to head south and venture out to sea. If nothing unexpected happened, at least in Li Lingtian's view, it would be very difficult for him to see Guan and Yang Jian again in his lifetime. When they parted, Li Lingtian asked Guan to convey a message to Ji Xiaoyu, speaking words of blessings. "Master, is there really no power in the world willing to come out and stop the great cold demon sect?" Blood Prison Great Saint asked with a tone full of emotion. In his world there existed no force as formidable. Yang Jian also looked towards Guan, unworried as long as his martial master was calm. Guan responded, "How can there not be? Many led the charge towards the soul-calming pagoda, only to fall due to lack of strength." He spoke the truth. Every now and then a group of cultivators and demons would assault the soul-calming pagoda, and even if they perished, others would follow their will. Whether the world was good or evil it was hard to say, but one thing was certain: there existed real justice, and some cultivators deemed it more important than eternal life. Guan looked into the distance. "Great cold demon sect, you'd better have something worth my fear, or even the Holy King can't protect you. What would the Holy Court do if angered? Kill if necessary, or simply flee to outer heaven?" If no trouble came knocking, Guan naturally preferred to stay low in the supreme sect. But when trouble came knocking uninvited, he wouldn't swallow his pride. Along the way, having killed numerous madmen, Guan was always aware of how terrifying his ability to seize life was. In anyone else's hands, it would have caused catastrophe across the world. He managed restraint because that was who he was. Everyone had their path, and he only wished to walk his without guilt. However, the more chaotic the world became, the more he desired to unleash slaughter. He wanted to kill the people of the great cold demon sect. Across the tumultuous seas lay the sea-breaking rift, splitting the ocean in two, beside which stood the towering soul-calming pagoda, its top seeming to touch the sky. The sky brimmed with stifling thunderclouds with occasional muffled thunder. At the first level of the soul-calming pagoda, the life-seizing immortal sat on a lotus throne, flanked by 3 individuals, none inferior in presence, while hundreds of great cold demon sect cultivators stood in the hall, creating a cheerful ambience with laughter, looking nothing like demon cultivators, adorned in splendid garments and dignified demeanors, some even appearing ethereal and wise. A woman in red next to the life-seizing immortal opened her eyes, turned to him and asked, "Brother, how much longer must we wait? Are there still beings in this mortal region that the 4 of us cannot subdue?" The other 2 carefree primordial immortals opened their eyes, their expressions indifferent, eyes fixed on the life-seizing immortal. Life-seizing immortal slowly opened his eyes, saying, "Caution is the parent of safety. Bai Hong's death was too peculiar, we must not be careless, remember what this land hides." The 3 carefree primordial immortals fell silent. Having lived for hundreds of thousands of years and weathered many storms, they shed their arrogance upon hearing life-seizing immortals' words. Indeed, the greater the power, the greater the caution required. At this moment, someone in the hall stepped forward and loudly said, "Venerable masters, why not ignite another disaster to test the limits of that mysterious being and drive more people away, lest they hinder us?" With these words, the hall erupted with agreement and cries for revenge for Bai Hong. Life-seizing immortals' gaze turned to the first speaker, a blue-robed Taoist with a treasure sword at his waist and a folding fan in hand, his inherent sword intent formidable even just standing there. "Qingxin, what would you like to do?" asked the life-seizing immortal. Silence followed in the hall. With a smirk, Qingxin the Taoist replied, "I wield a sword capable of slicing oceans and moons alike. How about I cleave that continent in half with a single strike?" After speaking, he raised his arms, turned to face the crowd, prompting applause and cheers in the hall. The majority of cultivators present felt no pressure but rather a playful curiosity to see who would dare oppose the great cold demon sect. Were it another mortal region they might have worried, but here, like tigers among chickens, where was the reason to fear? Watching Qingxin display such vigor, the other 3 carefree primordial immortals smiled, having watched him grow up and master Taoist sorcery, now capable of standing on his own, they were naturally pleased. After a moment's hesitation, life-seizing immortal slowly nodded. Seeing this, Qingxin's smile grew larger, declaring, "In that case I will go now. Fellow disciples, come and enjoy the spectacle with me." The life-seizing immortal added, "Do not stray far. Master, rest assured." Qingxin saluted with his hands, turned and left, followed by a throng. The woman in red turned to the life-seizing immortal, saying, "Now's a good time for you to speak up and accelerate the process. After all, delay could lead to problems." Life-seizing immortal hesitated again, then slowly nodded. In Supreme Sect, within a bright hall, all elders gathered, including Lu Lingjun and Nine-Finger Divine Lord, most frowning in concern. LV Badian, sitting in the sect leader's seat and flanked by 5 supreme elders, appeared equally at a loss. Vice Sect Leader Ji Hantian spoke out, "Sect Leader, just say what you're thinking so we can prepare in advance. We can't possibly wait until a catastrophe is upon us to start considering our response." At this, other elders also spoke up, urging LV Badian. LV Badian took a deep breath and said, "I fear that once we retreat, our connection with Sword Venerable Fudao will be irreversibly severed." A few agreed with him. An elder stood up and argued, "Survival is the most important thing. So far, none of us have even seen Sword Venerable Fudao, let alone understand his views on the matter. Moreover, we simply cannot compare ourselves to Sword Venerable Fudao. If he wants to flee he can, his Dao level is beyond ours." This sentiment was echoed by others, considering not only themselves but also their disciples and descendants, each backed by influential families or intricate networks. The current Supreme Sect comprised millions of disciples, and the number scattered across various places was immeasurable. Gu Zong also sighed, unusually not supporting LV Badian this time. Lu Lingjun also wished for the Supreme Sect to evacuate. Her reluctance to leave Supreme Sect stemmed from concern for the people of the Third Medicine Valley, hoping they wouldn't perish in this impending catastrophe. LV Badian's expression turned extremely grim as he took another deep breath and declared, "If so, those who want to leave may do so. However, Supreme Sect must remain on this continent, empty or not. This is our stance. Without Sword Venerable Fudao, there would be no Supreme Sect today." As he spoke these words he relaxed. A smile appeared on his face, the decision lifting the burden from his shoulders. It would be death at worst. His statement caused an uproar in the hall. Sect leader, think again? If it really comes to it, why not ask the elder in front of the heaven-cutting axe for advice? You can't make such arbitrary decisions. Yes, what does it mean to say the sect can be empty but not leave? Where does that leave our dignity? The sect is a whole, we must advance or retreat together. Sect leader, let's leave together. We can ask Sword Venerable Fudao to join us. LV Badian, listening to their words, felt their hypocrisy. A bunch of cowards afraid to take responsibility and scared to die. As he was about to speak, a voice suddenly echoed through the heavens and earth. From today my disciple, Qingxin the Taoist, will annihilate one region each day. Worldly beings, your time is running out. Today let's see which region's creatures are most pitiable, unfortunate enough to be the first annihilated. As the life-seizing immortal's voice faded, a chill ran through everyone in the hall. They were not frightened by his words, but felt a terrifying sword intent targeting them. More precisely, every sentient being on the continent was terrified by this sword intent. Chapter 294. Deadline of Death inside the Third Medicine Valley. Guan and an Xian stood in a garden area, with Guan instructing what to plant next. An Xian listened attentively. Just then, the voice of the life-seizing immortal suddenly echoed. He was actually planning to exterminate one region of heaven and earth every day. An Xian had no time to think further when a terrifying sword intent descended, causing a drastic change in her complexion. The previously bustling Medicine Valley fell silent in an instant. An Xian felt as if she were being crushed by a mountain, almost unable to breathe, which turned her complexion even paler. Suddenly, a hand landed on her shoulder, making her heart tremble. Before she could think further, the pressure on her body abruptly vanished. She turned her head instinctively and, seeing it was her master's hand, she breathed a sigh of relief. Master, could it be that they've chosen the continent we're on? An Xian asked cautiously. Even though she was carefree on normal days, she feared death when faced with it. The words of the life-seizing immortal, coupled with the sudden sword intent, made it clear that the first chosen continent was the one they were on. Guan took a deep breath and feigned composure. Unclear, let's go back inside first. Within the confines of the Supreme Sect, such calamities are not our concern. Whether we live or die, we leave it to fate. An Xian wanted to speak again, but Guan pulled her away. Another voice rang out in Medicine Valley, Amit Ba. With Shen Zinza's words, everyone in Medicine Valley felt relieved, and disciples ran towards the pavilions. Rumble. The earth trembled as the Supreme Sect activated its great protective formation. Golden barriers rose up from all directions. By the time Guan and his companion reached the pavilion, Ji Xiaoyu had already stepped outside. She gazed at the sky, the red Dao patterns on her forehead starting to flicker with tiny flames. Seeing this, Guan quickly approached her and asked, "You weren't frightened just now, were you?" Ji Xiaoyu's Dao patterns returned to normal as Guan blocked her view. Her expression calmed down and she nodded, "No, it seems the life-seizing immortal is targeting the continent. It's probably related to the actions of Sword Venerable Fudao years ago." Guan comforted her, "Don't overthink it. If the enemy is acting this way, it means Sword Venerable Fudao is still around. Take care of the valley for me, I need to make a trip to Mystic Valley." With that, Guan quickly headed towards the transmission array platform. Ji Xiaoyu looked at his receding figure, wanting to say something, but she couldn't find the words. Somehow this scene felt familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere. Guan swiftly arrived in Mystic Valley and saw Lu Jiujia already calling disciples to take cover. He nodded to himself in approval. Taking advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention, he quickly walked into the woods pretending to inspect medicinal herbs. "Are you courting death? Caring about your flowers and plants at a time like this? You must be insane." The voice of Jiang Qiong came from behind, and Guan turned to look, seeing her with an ugly expression walking towards him. She looked at Guan and said with resentment, "Now I can't even escape if I want to. Let's wait for death together." She could feel the sword intent approaching rapidly. Even if she tried to escape now, she was afraid it would be too late to reach the Nine Nether Road. Guan, squatting on the ground, couldn't help but punch the grass, picking up a handful of fallen leaves before standing up, his face filled with unwillingness. Jiang Qiong looked at his expression and suddenly laughed, teasing, "What's wrong? Scared?" Guan tossed the leaves in his hand forward as if venting his anger. He then turned to look at Jiang Qiong and said, "I'm not afraid. I just find this disdain for life detestable." Jiang Qiong fell silent, then said, "Come with me to the 8 scenic caves." Guan nodded and followed her up the mountain. Jiang Qiong didn't notice the leaves that Guan had thrown floated up again, each leaf trembling. Only after they entered the entrance of the 8 scenic caves did the leaves disappear into the forest. In front of the soul-calming pagoda, tens of thousands of great cold demon sect cultivators floated in the air, their eyes focused on Qingxin Jinren, who was holding a sword. Such exquisite sword intent, Elder Brother Kingxin's supreme mysterious sword Dao has reached the transformation realm. Indeed powerful, enough to sweep across the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. I heard that Elder Brother Bai Hong was defeated by Elder Brother Qingxin 1,000 years ago. The founder of the supreme mysterious sword Dao, the supreme mysterious ancestor, went to the Holy Land long ago. In 10,000 years, the only one who has reached such a level with the supreme mysterious sword Dao is Elder Qingxin. This sword strike, everyone should watch carefully, it is a rare sight. The great cultivators of the great cold demon sect discussed animatedly, mostly in a light-hearted tone. Even though they already knew about the fall of Bai Hong, they were not panicked. They had the numerical advantage this time, and with 4 carefree primordial immortals as their support, how could they possibly die? Qingxin Jinren positioned his treasure sword in front of him, the blade perfectly aligning with his eyes. Suddenly he opened his eyes, which astonishingly turned green. As soon as he opened his eyes, his sword intent fully erupted, silencing the surrounding noise. All eyes fell on Qingxin Jinren, and with a stern look, he immediately slashed with his sword. Sword light gleamed, chilling the heaven and sea, and even the rolling thunderclouds above were illuminated. As Qingxin Jinren swung his sword intent transformed into terrifying sword qi, shooting forward as his pupils suddenly contracted. In the reflection of his pupils, numerous green dots grew rapidly. From the onlooker's perspective, Qingxin Jinren's sword slashed out a terrifying sword qi tens of thousands of miles long, like a crescent moon sweeping across the sky. At that moment, a series of green light beams shot from the edge of the sky with even greater speed, too fast for anyone to react. Boom! The sword qi scattered, and Qingxin Jinren's eyes widened in disbelief as a green light reached him in a blink of an eye. As if time stood still, he saw a falling leaf amidst the green light. The leaf, carrying terrifying sword qi, directly shattered Qingxin Jinren's physical body and extinguished his soul. It wasn't just one leaf. Dozens more did the same, annihilating great cultivators of the great cold demon sect, the soul-calming pagoda trembling violently. The life-seizing immortal and his 4 carefree primordial immortal companions appeared out of thin air, casting spells swiftly to form a vast barrier, protecting all the disciples around them. Silence. The world rapidly fell into quietness, and all the disciples of the great cold demon sect trembled, displaying fear no longer masked by their previous nonchalant demeanor. The life-seizing immortal turned his head, noticing the leaves embedded all over the surface of the soul-calming pagoda, his pupils narrowing. It was leaves. The attack was too fast, so fast that by the time they realized it, more than a dozen disciples had died, all heaven and earth flying immortals. Even the red-clothed woman who had been urging the life-seizing immortal to speed up the process couldn't speak now. As powerful as the carefree primordial immortals were, they were filled with dread. The enemy had struck too fast, killing disciples right under their noses. It was as if someone had slapped them across the face, leaving a burning sensation. Guan followed Jiang Qiong into the 8 scenic caves, with prompts of lifespan continuously appearing before him. This strike seized 4,300,000 years of lifespan. Guan hadn't used his full strength, but it was enough to terrify the life-seizing immortal and his associates. If they could summon even stronger beings, then they should call them sooner. If not, even if they gave up on exterminating this region of the mortal world, Guan would not let them go. The 100-year mandate set by the life-seizing immortal had already become his death sentence in Guan's mind. Jiang Qiong let out a sound of surprise, feeling the terrifying sword intent suddenly disappear. Guan then asked, "Could it be that we've escaped this disaster?" Without looking back, Jiang Qiong replied, "Can't say for sure." The two made their way to the green vine tree with Jiang Qiong starting to set up the formation. Guan asked her what she was doing. The smaller the range of the formation, the stronger its protection. I want to see if we can escape this disaster. Let's take a gamble. If it doesn't work, we're dead anyway, so worrying then would be pointless, Jiang Qiong casually answered, making Guan want to cry and laugh at the same time. Meanwhile, the entire continent was in a state of tension. Even though the sword intent had vanished, the tightly wound nerves of all beings on the continent could not immediately relax. Many beings began to flee, and Guan even felt many presences flying out of the supreme sect, all in groups, which were noble families in flight. Inside the third medicine valley, Ji Hantian landed swiftly and found Ji Xiaoyu. The two conversed inside the house. "I'm not leaving," Ji Xiaoyu stated, expressionless. Upon hearing this, Ji Hantian became angry, but for some reason looking at Ji Xiaoyu, he thought of a fellow descendant with the same name and surname. Although they looked different, their expressions at this moment made them seem like the same person. Ji Hantian's anger dissipated somewhat, and he said solemnly, "Regardless of whether the life-seizing immortal has chosen this continent, there will only be more dangers ahead. The Ji family must preserve its lineage. Why do you insist on staying?" Ji Xiaoyu looked at him. "Someone must stay. I can give my spot to someone else. Besides, where can we flee to?" Ji Hantian felt suffocated with frustration. Years ago he had tried to forcibly keep another Ji Xiaoyu without success. Now he wanted this Ji Xiaoyu to leave, but it was still not possible. He couldn't understand why these descendants always opposed him. He was always looking out for their best interest. "There's no time left. You'd better go and persuade the other clan members," Ji Xiaoyu reminded. Ji Hantian glared at her and left immediately. Ji Xiaoyu was not his direct descendant, so he could only advise without the right to forcibly take her away. Once Ji Hantian had departed, Ji Xiaoyu thought for a moment and then walked out of her house. She went outside the courtyard looking up at the sky, only to see numerous cultivators flying over Medicine Valley. It was unclear whether they were fleeing or preparing for battle. "The Great Cold Demon Sect," Ji Xiaoyu murmured to herself, the Tao patterns between her eyebrows once more emitting thin flames. Time passed amidst the panic of beings below. The people were trapped in agony and anxiety. Until an ancient hour later the atmosphere began to ease. Elder Lu looked at Xin Xinzi and asked, "Senior, were we not chosen?" The other disciples looked at Xin Xinzi as well. Xin Xinzi's background was very mysterious, but the higher-ups of the Supreme Sect held him in high regard. Such an existence would certainly see further than they could. Xin Xinzi frowned deeply, looking towards the sky, and said, "Indeed, we were not chosen." At his words, all the disciples rejoiced. Chapter 295. The Great Cold Demon Sect Attacks. Upon hearing Xin Xinzi's words, the disciples of Medicine Valley all cheered, yet Xin Xinzi hesitated as if he wanted to say more. He intended to say one thing, that it seemed no continent had been chosen. To obliterate a continent, what immense power it must require. He, being from the 9th layer of the wandering immortal realm, could surely sense it. However, he could not openly mention this for fear that these mortals would be terrified. Even if they knew what would happen next, what could they do? Better to enjoy this surprise and live the remaining days as carefree as possible. Time continued to pass. With the moon setting and the sun rising, only when the next day's sunlight swept across the great heaven and earth did the creatures of the continent finally breathe a sigh of relief. For the life-seizing immortal had said that each day one continent would be chosen, and they had survived the first day. The situation at the Supreme Sect also settled down. Although many noble families began to retreat, the core foundation remained unshaken. When Guan returned to the third Medicine Valley, normalcy had returned to Medicine Valley. After Xiaochuan left and an XN began to manage Medicine Valley, and because of her gentle nature, most disciples liked her, so there had been no issues under her management. Shenzhen found him soon after he returned. "Do you want a place to hide?" Shenzhen asked with a smug smile, her eyes gleaming behind her veil. While walking toward a distant garden, Guan casually asked, "How would we hide?" Following his steps, Shenzhen explained, "I can hide you inside a painting or scroll and then keep it hidden. Wouldn't that be a refuge? People are trying to obliterate continents. Where could you hide?" "Underground, of course." He said he would obliterate continents. Sure, he meant to demolish the mortals and shatter the land, not obliterate the earth completely. That makes sense. Are you a genius by any chance? Guan suddenly realized, looking at Shenzhen with amazed eyes. A twitch appeared at the corner of Shenzhen's veiled mouth, clearly perceiving the sarcasm in Guan's tone. Guan continued, "Don't overthink it. I always feel that yesterday our continent was not excluded. That mysterious pressure was no lie. Also, haven't you noticed how calm today has been?" Upon hearing this, Shenzhen narrowed her eyes. "Are you suggesting that the Great Cold Demon Sect's offensive was thwarted?" "Very likely. After all, I trust that the heavens are just. There must be great cultivators out there with a heart for the mortals. A heretical path like the great cold demon sect cannot last forever, Guwen declared with conviction, his face full of determination. Shenzhen suddenly found it hard to judge him. Calling him foolish wouldn't explain his current stature, and calling him naive wouldn't explain how he could write something as unique as Journey to the West. You say the heavens are just. Tell me, do you believe that real immortals exist beyond those with great cultivation levels? Shenzhen suddenly asked, curious. She had always believed that investiture of the gods and Journey to the West were not fabricated but were inspired by something Guwen had seen, elaborated with decorative imagination and fantasy. Perhaps, as Guwen claimed, an immortal guided him in his dreams. Guwen and Shenzhen chatted casually, a microcosm of the wider world, where everywhere people discussed the life-seizing immortal. Without his demise the catastrophe would not end. 2 days later, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord and Stealing the 5 Elements returned to the Third Medicine Valley, almost as if they had planned it. Sitting before a chessboard they exchanged a look, their eyes heavy with gravity. Did you feel it too? Stealing the 5 Elements asked. The Divine Lord made his move, saying, a net of heaven and earth, no escape. Stealing the 5 Elements then played his piece. How come you have no escape? I'm the one who's bound by fate. Continuing to glance towards a distant pavilion. Ji Xiaoyu was his hope. The Divine Lord fell silent, sighing deeply. Stealing the 5 Elements looked at him, curiously asking, speaking of which, I've always wondered, what exactly are you looking for? The Divine Lord didn't respond, leaving Stealing the 5 Elements contemplative, a subtle look crossing his face. In the Divine Exotic Realm. By the sea. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm stood before the Divine Exotic Life Tablet, surrounded by 7 Divine Exotic Ghost Kings, all of them looking up into the sky. Beneath the blood-red sky hung a swirling horsetail whisk. Compared to the calm demeanor of the Master of Divine Exotic Realm, the other Divine Exotic Ghost Kings looked uneasy, knowing whom they faced. Master of Divine Exotic Realm, prepare to join us in an expedition. A cold voice resounded, echoing through the entire great heaven and earth. In a distant cave, Zhang Buku also heard this voice and inadvertently opened his eyes, his brow furrowed in worry for the Master of Divine Exotic Realm. With an expressionless face, the Master of Divine Exotic Realm asked, an expedition to where? To avenge Divine Exotic Impermanence. The cold voice spoke again, causing the faces of the Divine Exotic Ghost Kings and the Realm Master to shift. The great cold demon sect and that entity were indeed going to clash. This battle might determine the fate of this mortal world region. In the Star Sea congregations, a small heaven and earth. And Hao stood before the palace gates, observing disciples constantly entering and exiting the floating islands, his brows deeply furrowed. A figure appeared beside him, his master, Sage Fuchen. And Hao quickly said, Master, it's good you're here, I need to speak with you. Let's talk while on the way. Prepare for retreat, we must withdraw today. Sage Fuchen said in a grave tone. Why? And Hao couldn't help but ask. The great cold demon sect is making a major descent, targeting the continent where the sword Venerable Fudao resides. They appear to be intent on sieging your master, Sage Fuchen explained. On hearing this, and Hao became anxious. Before he could reply, Sage Fuchen continued, your cultivation level won't assist your master. It's best to leave early. Your master, although strong, can't withstand the full assault of the great cold demon sect, otherwise he wouldn't be on the defensive. And Hao gritted his teeth, my concern isn't for my master. I must go back. An Xin was still within the supreme sect. How could he abandon her? He immediately leaped up, intending to forcefully break out of the Star Sea congregation's realm. Suddenly, long hair wrapped around him, surprisingly Sage Fuchen's horsetail whisk. Master! And Hao cried out in anguish, startling the other disciples. Sage Fuchen held the horsetail whisk, chanting incantations. The whisk's hairs quickly extended, gagging in Hao. I'm sorry, disciple. Sage Fuchen's eyes became resolute. This scene left the other disciples silent. Without discussion, they all understood and felt the heaviness in their hearts, likewise having people they couldn't leave behind. The Star Sea congregations were about to flee. In another realm, Liya, leveraging Divine Exotic City, forcefully broke free, unobstructed by anyone. He quickly flew out over the Star Sea, heading towards the horizon. Disciple, think carefully, once you go there is no turning back. An old voice sounded, and as Liya turned his head, he didn't see his master's figure. He did not answer but instructed the divine exotic immortal spirit on his shoulder to move forward. The divine exotic immortal spirit howled, and the divine exotic city immediately displayed extraordinary speed, streaking towards the horizon. After flying for a while and seeing no one pursued, Leah relaxed, his gaze hardened. Junior brother Gu, wait for me. And the old ancestor, I wonder if you're still thinking of me. Leah thought silently, his face heavy. Initially, his emotions weren't profoundly impacted, fueled only by fury as Zhang Buku became a divine exotic resentful ghost. However, the moment the Star Sea congregations announced their departure, he panicked. The Star Sea congregations were a major force at sea. If there was any chance of victory, they wouldn't be abandoning their domain. Hearing that the great cold demon sect aimed to target the sword Venerable Fudao, he couldn't contain himself. The sword Venerable Fudao was his primordial ancestor. He was less worried about him as the ancestor could escape if he couldn't fight, but he feared for the others who might not escape. He had to be quick. Leah clenched his teeth, fearing the continent had already fallen. The divine exotic immortal spirit, however, was not panicked, leaping joyfully in the air, which both irritated and envied Leah. This creature seemed to fear nothing, its confidence was unknown. Time rapidly passed. 2 ancient hours later. Leah, sitting atop the tower meditating, suddenly sensed something, opening his eyes to find the divine exotic city enveloped in darkness. Instinctively he looked up, then his eyes widened in disbelief. How possible? Leah murmured to himself, his voice trembling, his eyes full of despair. In the third Medicine Valley. At the garden fence, Guan was stretching his muscles. Passing by, Yu Yingying curiously asked, "What are you doing? Isn't there exercise in the morning?" Guan replied, "Just felt like moving." "Is that not allowed?" What followed was sure to be a great battle. It must be said, the great cold demon sect was indeed frightening. The dense auras attacking from all directions were overwhelmingly oppressive, and once they arrived, if seen by the denizens of the continent, it would surely cause legs to tremble. Yu Yingying looked at him, unable to resist asking, "Everyone is worried about the calamity, why aren't you afraid?" "Because I'm not afraid, so I'm not frightened," Guan responded casually, his words leading Yu Yingying to glare, feeling the urge to punch him. She couldn't understand Guan at all. Out for experience he feared death, yet, with calamity impending he seemed not to fear it. Truly a baffling person. Yet, somehow, the more anxious she felt, the more she wanted to talk to Guan, perhaps it was his fearless demeanor. Guan guessed her thoughts and smiled, "Whether you worry or fear, it won't change anything, will it?" Yu Yingying opened her mouth, unsure how to respond. Guan drew his heavenly residence sword, suddenly unsheathing it. The sword's light gleamed in Yu Yingying's face, snapping her out of her trance. Looking at Guan holding the sword, Yu Yingying's earlier illusion re-emerged, his forehead marked with golden patterns, appearing extraordinary as if an immortal lord on earth. She had to admit, although Guan's cultivation level wasn't impressive, his appearance and bearing were truly out of this world, unlike a mortal. Guan raised his sword towards Yu Yingying, the blade's tip reflecting in her pupils, causing her to shiver. "If only this sword could slash away the fear in your hearts, how wonderful would that be?" Guan said wistfully. Yu Yingying was left in a daze. "Do not fear, junior sister, it will soon pass," Guan murmured to himself, and as his words dropped, he was shrouded in a dark purple demonic chi that quickly engulfed his body, blazing furiously. His figure vanished into the depths of the forest, leaving no trace behind. At the edge of the continent, towering waves crashed against the shore. Above the mountains, great cultivators hovered in the air, with the vast landscape behind them and the endless ocean ahead. They hailed from different sects: Supreme Sect, Three Pure Ones Mountain, Sangtian Sect, Daotian Sect, Sword Sect, Candle Sky Peak, Flame Sect, Juhua Sect, and more. Sects across the world continuously dispatched cultivators to different edges of the continent. They were just one group gathering rapidly beyond 100, with more cultivators on their way. As their numbers grew, a newfound confidence began to swell inside them. Xiao Dai, a cultivator from Supreme Sect with a cultivation level of the 9th layer of the Mahayana realm, became the leader, calming the surrounding cultivators and beginning to give battle instructions. Just then, an overwhelmingly terrifying pressure descended, prompting them to turn their heads in shock. In the next second, their faces paled, and even the ever-confident Xiao Dai gaped in despair. A vast black fog rolled in from the horizon like a wave of darkness, unstoppable and devouring the skies and earth. Before the black fog, islands and demon beasts appeared insignificantly small, like dust. Even flying beasts were engulfed by the fog from behind, their fates uncertain. Looking up, shadows of different figures hovered above the black fog, clothed distinctly, wielding different Dharma treasures. Some had glowing artifacts floating behind them, some rode fierce mounts, and others stood proudly atop sword chi with their hands behind their backs. Each one was shadowed by a towering phantom 1,000 feet high, appearing like demon gods, their silhouettes a mirror of themselves. At first glance, there were endless towering demon phantoms of 1,000 feet high that could not be counted, creating an overwhelming sense of oppression. At this moment, the continent cultivators were plunged into dead silence, everyone stunned as if struck by lightning, frozen in midair. Xiao Dai saw behind these 1,000-foot demon phantoms an even more terrifying presence. With legs walking forward, the phantoms unable to reach even the ankles of this mysterious existence. It was impossible to imagine the true size. Some tried to look sideways. Wherever the ocean spread, there stood demon phantoms, casting them into despair not only by the disparity in cultivation levels but also the sheer numerical difference between friends and foes. "How can we win?" someone said with a bitter laugh. No one responded, their courage faltered. Above the clouds, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord and Wu Xing stood shoulder to shoulder, witnessing the entire continent surrounded by the great cold demon sect cultivators from all directions. "There are so many, even the divine exotic realm is here," Wu Xing clicked his tongue, sensing that the number of demon sect cultivators was no less than the divine exotic resentful ghosts. Most importantly, these demon cultivators' combined aura was astonishing, with many individual auras strong enough to make him wary. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord took a deep breath and scanned the continent as if searching for something. With such commotion, could the Saint World Holy King truly have reincarnated in this land? Wu Xing couldn't help but ask. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord looked into the distance and replied, "If the Holy Heart awakens with the Holy King's capabilities, rising to power won't be difficult. But the Great Cold Demon Sect fears that the Holy Court might detect the aura of the Saint World Holy King." After hearing this, Wu Xing found it to make sense and he stepped forward. "What are you planning to do?" inquired Nine-Fingered Divine Lord hastily. Without turning back, Wu Xing strode forward through the air, raising his hand with a laugh. "Forgot to tell you, I am the divine exotic ghost king Wu Xing. Wu Xing is just a pseudonym." Nine-Fingered Divine Lord frowned but didn't get angry, just watched as Wu Xing advanced. "Wu Xing, return to your place at once." The voice of the master of divine exotic realm rang out, loud and clear. Wu Xing accelerated immediately but suddenly his face darkened. He looked up only to see an immensely large hand reaching out from behind the demon army, covering the sky and aiming to seize him. The size of this hand was beyond what words could describe. Wu Xing was horrified to discover that he was frozen in place. "This is bad." Despair filled Wu Xing's eyes. At that moment, a powerful sword light forcefully entered his field of vision, and immediately after, the terrifying giant hand disintegrated before him. Subconsciously glancing over, his eyes widened in shock. He saw a figure he would never forget for all eternity. It was Guan, who had utilized the 9 extreme yin-yang body back in the divine exotic realm. Guan, holding 2 swords covered in dark purple demonic chi, brushed past Wu Xing. As his words hung in the air, Guan turned into a fleeting shadow, and in a flash, a streak of sword light appeared, boldly piercing through the distant black fog. Before Wu Xing could react, a terrifying wave of energy struck. His mouth agape, he looked on in disbelief. As he watched, a streak of sword chi burst from within the demon army, cutting a swath through the 1,000-foot demon phantoms at the waist. The light of the sword chi stripped the entire world of color in an instant. The continent cultivators were dazzled into closing their eyes, the mortal spirits unable to glimpse this sword light. Above the clouds, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's face also transformed, his soul shaken by the impact. In his eyes, the demon phantoms perished, the black fog churned, and a sword light rapidly stretched, as if intent on splitting the very heavens and earth in two. In that moment, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who had lived for 170,000 years, witnessed the strongest sword strike of his life. "Who are you?" A voice full of both shock and rage erupted, the tone laced with fear. Chapter 297. Guan takes action. The sword light between heaven and earth began to fade, and the voice of the mysterious great cultivator from the great cold demon sect still echoed over the ocean, awakening the continent cultivators who had not seen Guan's figure just now. Only Nine-Fingered Divine Lord and stealing the 5 elements had seen clearly. But the immense sword intent made them think of one person. Sword Venerable Fudao. It's Sword Venerable Fudao. There's no mistake. It must be him. A mystic heart realm cultivator from the Supreme Sect exclaimed excitedly. He had also been to the heavenly repair platform and had experienced the sword intent within the words righteous path. Xiao Dai was equally excited, his eyes filled with frenzied anticipation. At this moment he remembered the scene when Sword Venerable Fudao descended upon the 7-star spirit realm. Stealing the 5 elements, who had narrowly escaped calamity, let out a sigh of relief, immediately retreated, and dared not approach the encroaching army of demonic shadows again. Guan stood atop the demon mist, sword in hand, with 1,000 zhang demonic shadows dissipating in all directions, but even more demonic shadows approached, encircling him. He even saw some demonic shadows standing tens of thousands of zhang tall and giant demons of indeterminate size. You have successfully seized 10,298 years of lifespan from Meng Qinglang, Wandering Immortal Realm 7th floor. You have successfully seized 1,459 years of lifespan from Su Linxin, Loose Immortal Realm 2nd floor. You have successfully seized 12,080 years of lifespan from True Man Wuyun, Wandering Immortal Realm 6th floor. Notification after notification continuously popped up before Guan's eyes, but Guan didn't rush to make another move. Instead he looked around. One had to say the great cold demon sect's response was truly swift. As soon as he made a move, the remaining cultivators did not panic but instead immediately arranged a formation. Their formation was highly profound, not only capable of being formed in an extremely short amount of time but also containing powerful and mysterious forces. After the sword light vanished, in less than 3 breaths' time, the world suddenly changed, and in an instant, Guan found himself in the cosmic star's cape, with rolling black mist under his feet, and still encircled by demonic shadows. The demonic shadows' feet held the Dharma treasures of the great cold demon sect cultivators. Accompanied by Guan's arrival in the cosmic star's cape, those titanic figures and even larger beings revealed their true forms. There were beasts as mighty as creation's god mountains, female cultivators who resembled fairies constantly scattering strange petals, and enormous birds with wingspans of 10,000 li circling overhead. The demon mist under Guan's feet churned violently, like surging waves. Who are you exactly? If you do not reveal your identity, do not blame us for showing no mercy. The previous voice sounded again. This time, its tone was incomparably cold. After the formation was set up, he seemed to have regained his confidence. Guan looked up and saw, within the layers of encirclement above, in absolute darkness, a pair of gigantic eyes lurked, as if an unimaginable existence outside the universe was peering at him, filled with an oppressive feeling. Sword Venerable Jesuin, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm 8th Floor 780-450/830, 000/880, 000. An old monster who had lived for 780,000 years. However, killing this individual would only yield a little over 5,000 years of lifespan, which was too disappointing for Guan. As Sword Venerable Jesuin opened his eyes, 4 life-seizing immortals from the Carefree Primordial Immortal concurrently appeared. Fortunately, they had abundant lifespan, which improved Guan's mood. This is the Great Cold Demon Sect's Luo Tian Star's Immortal Capturing Formation. Once this formation is completed, no matter how great your divine skills, it will be impossible for you to escape. The voice of Sword Venerable Jesuin rang out, majestic to the extreme. The other 4 Carefree Primordial Immortals took out their supreme treasures and dispersed in all directions. Once they stopped, the entire cosmic star's cape rippled, numerous rainbow lights emerged. These lights were not mere illusions, but were also condensing a mysterious force. Guan looked up at Sword Venerable Jesuin and asked, "Does the Great Cold Demon Sect have anyone stronger?" As these words were spoken, Sword Venerable Jesuin's gaze immediately changed, and all the cultivators of the Great Cold Demon Sect were scared, their eyes filled with fear when they looked at him. Someone stronger? How could this person be so arrogant? However, due to Guan's previous sword strike, no one dared to challenge him at this moment. All of them were on high alert. The face of life-seizing immortal turned extremely ugly, intuition telling him that the other party was not being arrogantly presumptuous. At this moment he was filled with dread. Luckily he wasn't rash but instead gathered the strength of the great cold demon sect. Otherwise he might have ended up with his soul scattered like his disciple Bai Hong. For a time, silence fell within the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation. It seems there's no one stronger? Truly disappointing. You're acting so recklessly, I thought you'd have more to back it up. Guan spoke again and suddenly he threw the heavenly resident's sword out. Boom. With this sword strike he swept above the black mist, annihilating the great cold demon sect cultivators one by one, and when the sword blade arrived in front of them, a layer of light burst forth around their bodies, but it was shattered as soon as it appeared, utterly failing to protect them. One sword pierced thousands of li, directly penetrating the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation and returning to reality. The continent cultivators hovering in the air only saw a sword light cutting through the vast expanse of black mist in front of them, making them even more nervous, unclear about the state of the battle within that black mist. After Guan made his strike, Sword Venerable Jesuin immediately gave the command, "Kill!" The great cold demon sect cultivators from all directions cast their spells. Various spells and divine skills formed a stream of rainbow colors charging towards Guan. Guan raised his hand to grab, then retracted it, revealing an individual in his palm. Origin Heaven Capturing Hand. This was the inherent divine skill of the primordial chaos supreme holy skill. Today was the first time Guan had used it. The person in his hand was Sword Venerable Jesuin, a white-robed elder. At this moment, Sword Venerable Jesuin's face was filled with fear and despair. Guan directly crushed him to dust. Then taking up the Qinghong sword he began the slaughter. Within the continent, an endless stream of cultivators rushed to the edge. When they saw the ocean they all changed color. The fearsome black mist seemed as if it could devour everything between heaven and earth, giving one the feeling of an impending disaster. Anyone who saw it would be afraid. The black mist surged violently as if countless demons were raging within. The morale on the side of the continent collapsed completely, with no one willing to fight. What they didn't know was that within the black mist, a large number of great cold demon sect cultivators were rushing in the same direction. The cultivators of the great cold demon sect had received the message. Someone had launched an assault on one side. All warriors were to immediately reinforce the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation. Rolling thunderclouds covered the sky, enveloping the entire continent. The sound of thunder was oppressively heavy. In the demon land, within a subsect of the supreme sect, Yi Lan stood on a pavilion looking up at the sky, tightly clutching the white spirit sword in her hand. She felt no anomaly from within the white spirit sword, but her heart would not be at peace. "I hope we can safely get through this calamity," Yi Lan muttered to herself, praying secretly. Although she saw no hope of longevity, she didn't want life to end like this. She had so many things unfinished, so many places unvisited, she had yet to fulfill her promise with her senior brother. How could she be resigned to death? Beneath the thunderclouds, nine-fingered divine lord and stealing the five elements stood shoulder to shoulder, unable to maintain composure, both unconsciously agape with faces full of shock. Not just them but the continent cultivators felt the same. Newcomers slowed their flight speed due to the sights before them. Within the vast black mist, countless enormous demonic shadows were snuffed out, leaping out, and countless cultivators hovered, all attacking in the same direction, which glinted with sword light. Even though separated by a great distance, unable to see the specifics of the battle, everyone could sense a powerful sword intent. This was not a battle of evenly matched strength, but a massacre with a great disparity in power. The number of cultivators from the great cold demon sect was vast, forming an ocean of people, and within their encirclement, Guan wielded dual swords casually, yet each sword could kill a large number of cultivators and demons. His strength deeply struck the great cold demon sect. "No good. We are not his match. Damn. He's doing it on purpose, deliberately not using divine skills and relying solely on sword chi to slaughter us. Even the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation has been broken by him. How could we have any chance of winning? Be careful. His sword is swinging this way. Retreat. Quick retreat." The world plunged into clamor and chaos. Each of Guan's sword strikes took not just life but also the overall morale of the great cold demon sect. Life-seizing immortal dared not approach Guan, only able to use long-range divine skills. Giant hands resembling the clasping of fingers descended from the sky, pressing towards Guan, but were instantly shattered upon contact with him, having no effect. Guan strolled leisurely, walking above the black mist, each step followed by a sword swing as casually as if taking a walk, with no swordsmanship to speak of. Every time the great cold demon sect tried to form the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation, it would be dispersed by Guan's sword chi. Guan looked at the notifications before him, struggling to contain the emotions in his heart. He was not killing for the sake of killing, he was enacting justice on behalf of the heavens. Suddenly, Guan stopped in his tracks, and as he did, all the great cold demon sect cultivators retreated, leaving 100 li radius around Guan where no one dared to tread. The cultivators of the great cold demon sect fell silent, all staring dead ahead at Guan. Life-seizing immortal gritted his teeth and said, "The sect leader will arrive soon, don't panic everyone." His voice reached the ears of every great cold demon sect cultivator, yet these words did not boost their morale. "Don't panic?" Guan's voice rose, filled with sarcasm as if he had heard the world's biggest joke. Chapter 298. Breaking through a lifespan of 100 million years. "I'm not dreaming, am I?" Leah muttered to himself, questioning the divine exotic immortal spirit perched on his shoulder. The divine exotic immortal spirit also widened its eyes in shock, its mouth agape. From their perspective, the huge hand at the horizon of the sea seemed as large as the ocean itself. If not for the curved fingers, they could hardly tell it was a hand. It felt like it could grab an entire continent with ease. Leah recognized the demonic chi emanating from the gigantic hand as somewhat familiar. Wait, wasn't this the hand of the primordial ancestor? At that thought, a surge of blood rushed through Leah's body uncontrollably, exciting him to the extreme. At the same time, the entire continent's populace could see Guan's figure, whose massive presence shook mountains and clouds on his path, a sight that overturned their understanding and imagination. In the third Medicine Valley, thousands of disciples watched with their mouths agape. Ji Xiaoyu also stepped out of his house, completely dumbfounded when he saw Guan's towering figure. It was as if they were beholding the descent of a deity. "What is that?" "It's Sword Venerable Fudao. It's the silhouette of Sword Venerable Fudao." "Really? How can it be so large? Is it not an illusion?" Many texts record that Sword Venerable Fudao perceives others using the demon shadow divine skill. "I knew Sword Venerable Fudao wouldn't abandon us." A roar of cheers erupted across the continent. Though the demon shadow divine skill was terrifying, the thought of it representing Sword Venerable Fudao uplifted their spirits rather than causing fear. Since the fame of Sword Venerable Fudao, which righteous deed hadn't he done, and which person he killed wasn't among the evil? If it were a normal competition among sects, Sword Venerable Fudao wouldn't have intervened, otherwise Supreme Sect would have long become the foremost under heaven. Because of this, other sects respected Sword Venerable Fudao, acknowledging Supreme Sect's luck. In confrontations with Supreme Sect, they were wary of Sword Venerable Fudao, but they weren't afraid he'd harm them as long as they didn't commit heinous acts. Since Sword Venerable Fudao appeared, many disciples had perished during Supreme Sect's expansion, yet Sword Venerable Fudao hadn't sought vengeance. The sects and clans that decided to stay were bustling with excitement, as if the spring festival had come early. While the continent was invigorated, the cultivators of the great cold demon sect fell into despair. They watched as Guan's fingers slowly rose, appearing like ancient colossal peaks ascending, creating an overwhelmingly impactful scene. Even Immortal Path Realm cultivators watched in awe. The life-seizing immortal desperately mobilized his mana, but he couldn't move an inch, feeling as insignificant as an ant. How many years had it been? Ever since he entered the Nirvana realm, not to mention the carefree primordial immortal realm, he hadn't been so embarrassed. The other three carefree primordial immortals were in the same state, utterly immobile despite their full efforts, despair beyond common understanding. If they were so affected, not to mention cultivators of other realms, despair shrouded every heart. This hand had captured millions of the great cold demon sect's cultivators and demons. Those arriving cultivators from the great cold demon sect, upon seeing this gigantic hand, fled in panic, throwing aside all their rules and consequences. Guan looked down at the great cold demon sect cultivators and the demons they brought within his palm. He also hesitated. Killing too many would weigh on his conscience and he worried it might bring greater troubles. But remembering the countless lives Bai Hong had slaughtered, his heart hardened. Such a wicked sect, if it's to be extinguished, so be it. If even this act brought divine retribution, then Guan would question what heaven really stood for. Once Guan's thoughts cleared, he suddenly clenched his hand. His palm was so huge that a simple clench stirred up a terrifying storm, unleashing waves sweeping toward the horizon. The fierce winds assaulted Divine Exotic City, forcing it to activate its city protection array immediately. Leah watched as the protective barrier around Divine Exotic City violently distorted. He couldn't concern himself with the safety of the city as he looked into the distance, trembling. The sight of that mighty clenched fist was simply too magnificent. He even doubted whether immortal cultivation could really reach such a mighty level. He wondered whether the primordial ancestor was born an immortal, a true immortal, not merely a mortal who had cultivated into one. As Guan clenched, the heaven and earth fell silent. The terrifying oppression that had engulfed the continent and the surrounding seas was gone. Despite the rolling thunderclouds above, the masses felt as though they had emerged from the clouds into clear skies. You successfully seized 1,228 years of lifespan from Bai Lai, Loose Immortal Realm, 7th layer. You successfully seized 493 years of lifespan from Qin Sushin, Nirvana Realm, 9th layer. You successfully seized 58 years of lifespan from the Sei Crossing Old Immortal, Nirvana Realm, 8th layer. You successfully seized 2,780 years of lifespan from Yunhai Tianjun, Wandering Immortal Realm, 5th layer. Alerts continuously popped up before Guan's eyes, and then he vanished, but his remaining image in the sky left the beings in awe. The black fog enveloping the sea swiftly dissipated, signifying the end of a massive calamity. Leah recovered his senses and quickly urged the divine exotic immortal spirit to head towards the mainland. Jiang Qiong had dug a hole and placed a coffin inside. What was this, planning to bury himself? Jiang Qiong pointed at the coffin. Lie down here with me, it might help us avoid disaster. Guan pretended to be reluctant. Is this really necessary? Jiang Qiong glared, swiftly came forward, and pushed him. If he hadn't suppressed his Taoist gang primal energy, Jiang Qiong might have been obliterated. Guan had no choice but to lie down in the coffin. Jiang Qiong jumped in after him, forcibly pressing him down. Lying in the coffin, she swung her right hand, and the lid immediately covered them, plunging their vision into darkness. From the outside, the coffin began sinking into the earth, soon vanishing from sight. Confined in the cramped space of the coffin, Guan and Jiang Qiong squeezed together. In that moment, Guan's heart calmed. Massacring so many, even if all evil, his heart couldn't stay tranquil easily. Excessive killing bred malevolent energy, even a thrilling emotion of breaking free from moral shackles. He needed time to adjust. Now, lying in this darkness, his mood inexplicably steadied. Despite being in the dark, Guan could still see his lifespan alerts. Jiang Qiong's body began to squirm. Her arm was soft, she seemed to feel too squeezed, constantly pressing against Guan. Guan couldn't help asking, if the calamity doesn't strike, how long must we hide here before we can leave? Being squeezed in the coffin with Jiang Qiong, he actually found it quite amusing, a completely novel experience for him. Hide for a few decades, at least until we get past the life-seizing immortal's 100-year mark. That long? No, I need to go back, there are disciples in the valley, I can't abandon them. Humph, don't even think about it. Now that you've already lain down, don't think about leaving. As her words fell, Guan felt his left hand grasped by hers. Her hand was cold like a corpse's. Guan tried to break free, but she held on tightly. Only after all the lifespan alerts had settled did Guan come back to his senses. He hadn't checked his lifespan yet, planning to later enjoy the moment of unveiling his lifespan. He spoke up, it's a bit uncomfortable squeezing like this, don't you think? Squeezing like this for decades, I'm afraid I might die. Jiang Qiong didn't respond but began to shift her body. Guan stiffened instantly. Jiang Qiong actually lay on top of him, face to face. In the darkness, Guan distinctly felt her breath was a bit agitated, though faint, not escaping his senses. Suddenly, Jiang Qiong's face pressed against Guan's chest, and he could feel one of her legs rubbing against his shin. This is bad. Things have gone too far. Guan fake coughed. Why are you so heavy? Jiang Qiong's breathing hitched, then Guan felt a hand land on his waist, fingers pinching his flesh. Chapter 299, Terrifying Lifespan. Kid, do you truly not know how to speak, or are you purposely trying to irritate me? In the darkness, Jiang Qiong's voice resounded, somewhat grinding her teeth in frustration, but her hand did not forcefully pinch Guan, it was merely a warning. Guan, of course, had intentionally disrupted the atmosphere. He feigned a cough and began asking Jiang Qiong what she would like to do after the disaster was over. Jiang Qiong fell into silence, her limbs ceasing to move as she started to contemplate the question seriously. In truth, she had always been unclear about what she really wanted to do. She had done many things to become stronger, but when the apocalyptic disaster arrived, she felt that her actions were meaningless. Guan did not disturb her, allowing her to think it over. However, the moment the silence settled, his mind began to wander. Pinned down by Jiang Qiong, Guan could feel every part of her body pressing against him. How could he remain calm? At that moment, the plots of Green Hero Travelogue, Supreme Secret Records, Black Heroes Travelogue, and many others flashed through his mind. Suddenly he felt Jiang Qiong tremble slightly. He hurriedly shifted his thoughts to ponder what exactly lifespan samsara was. As his thoughts shifted, Jiang Qiong calmed down. She spoke up, "If we truly can survive this catastrophe, then I'll focus on developing the Juhua sect. I won't wander around anymore. I feel like all these years of running about haven't really counted for much." "That's good," Guan replied, "to avoid any dangers." Jiang Qiong suddenly stretched out her hand, hugged Guan tightly and whispered softly, "The calamity of the ephemera sect left me without any relatives. You are now the only person I care about. Back when you first entered the 8 scenic caves, I was considering whether to kill you or not. Who would have thought that after so many years, you would become so important to me?" Hearing this, Guan stiffened slightly and replied helplessly, "Is it that serious? I haven't been all that good to you. On the contrary, you've taught me quite a few spells." Setting aside the matter of Sword Venerable Fu Dao supporting Jiang Qiong, Guan genuinely felt that his outward contributions to Jiang Qiong paled in comparison to what she had offered him. Many spells Jiang Qiong taught him he still used to this day. She had also given him magic artifacts and heavenly treasures. "How can you say you haven't been good to me? You've managed the 8 scenic caves very well and you've never betrayed me. Every time I've come back you've taken good care of me. Affection isn't entirely about contributions. If you were stronger you would definitely treat me even better, I understand that. And I felt right from our first meeting that you had the ability to kill me. You hid it well, but I knew not only that you didn't kill me, but also that you were obedient to me." Listening to Jiang Qiong, Guan suddenly didn't know what to say. "Of course, you rascal, you are good to everyone. Everyone in the valley praises you," Jiang Qiong suddenly snorted. Hearing this, Guan immediately said, "That's what makes me a scary talent, being good to everybody, making it hard to interpret my thoughts." "Yes, but you never ask others for returns, which means you genuinely care for those around you and aren't aiming for anything. Stop undermining yourself. I can feel whether you are genuine or not. Pretense cannot last long," Jiang Qiong said softly. Guan, seemingly startled, said, "You're not thinking of exchanging vows, are you? That won't work. My junior sister and I plan to get married in the last 100 years of our lives." Jiang Qiong laughed and said, "The last 100 years? What if one of you lives longer?" "Whoever lives longer, it's still the same path to go down. The pursuit of immortal cultivation isn't about enduring love, but about eternal life. You certainly see it clearly. Yes, so don't harbor any improper thoughts about me. Why can't I? At the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, it's common for one person to have multiple Taoist friends, and female cultivators can have many Taoist friends too as long as she is strong enough. Now I am stronger than you, and you can't escape my grasp unless one day your cultivation surpasses mine." Jiang Qiong said proudly, her hand catching Guan's face as she spoke. She suddenly began her offensive. "You demon cultivator, faking refuge from the calamity and actually abusing me? You can scream all you want now, it's useless. Be careful, I won't be nice. Come on, seeing your cultivation, I'm too lazy to immobilize you. I just like seeing you struggle. Don't worry, you'll be gentle." Jiang Qiong laughed very proudly, grabbing Guan's wrists with her hands, pinning him down. Then Guan felt something soft press on his face, beginning to explore around. Not good. This guy's gone wild. A thought crossed Guan's mind, and the earth suddenly trembled. Jiang Qiong immediately stopped, not daring to move. Guan breathed a sigh of relief, but just then, Jiang Qiong suddenly launched a sneak attack, catching him off guard. "Wait, it seems the disaster is over," Guan suddenly said. "How can you be sure?" Jiang Qiong questioned. "Before finding you, I saw Sword Venerable Fu Dao make a move." "Oh? Then you still came, it seems you also expected something to happen between us." "I just saw you were prepared and didn't want to waste our time, let's go out and see." Is that so? Really, let's go up. I'll think about it. Boom. Beneath the green vine tree the earth stirred and a coffin rose, its lid popping open, and Guan immediately leaped out, then straightened his clothes. Nearly lost my virginity. I can't let the over 200 years worth of my preserved virginity be breached. Guan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Mouth is okay but can't leak vital energy. Jiang Qiong slowly climbed out of the coffin, her hair slightly disheveled, her clothes not neat. She raised her eyes to look at Guan, giving him a seductive smile that caused him to quickly turn his head. We should stop calling me martial master. After all, I forcefully took Qing Shendan as a disciple, and Qing Shendan took you with ulterior motives, so it's not a real lineage. No, you brat never even called me martial master. Really, all men are the same, it's just that you, kid, are reluctant yet compliant, guarding against something, Jiang Qiong said, glaring at Guan. Guan dropped a sentence and left. I'm going to check the situation. He immediately slipped away. Jiang Qiong went to the edge of the pit. Watching his retreating back, she licked her lips as if savoring something. When Guan returned to the third medicine valley, the valley was still bustling with activity. Stealing the 5 elements and 9-fingered divine lord had also come back, standing together with Shin Xinzi, separated by a restriction, discussing the formidable power of sword venerable Fudao, unable to contain their emotions. To suppress the entire great cold demon sect with one hand was too exaggerated. It subverted everyone's understanding. For decades, the power of the great cold demon sect had been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Only because of understanding the terror of the great cold demon sect did everyone realize how incredibly powerful sword venerable Fudao was. Guan looked up and saw a figure hovering above the great heavenly spirit land, watching the continent where Guan was. The 9th layer of the carefree immortal realm. Although only one small realm higher than the sword venerable, the presence far surpassed the sword venerable, the gap enormous. Presumably he was the master of the great cold demon sect. At this moment, this master only dared to watch from a distance, not daring to come down. Guan also saw those fleeing cultivators of the great cold demon sect disperse like monkeys scattering from a fallen tree, already completely devoid of will to fight. He did not continue to pursue the kill, one reason being that the remaining cultivators were not as powerful as those he had suppressed, and another being he felt many presences approaching, even the presence of divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Yes, definitely the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. However, the person did not come with malice, and the direction was exactly where the Holy Land of Holy Court was located. Now that the Holy Court had appeared, it would not be appropriate for him to continue the chase. Next, it would be seen what stance the Holy Court took. Guan brought up his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 210/790 407 832, physique, primordial karmic body, cultivation level, divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, 9th layer, 790 million years of lifespan. At 20 you joined the Tai sect, and with your exceptional cultivation level and talent, you became a direct disciple, making a name for yourself within the sect. At 21 you utilized the lifespan deduction cultivation technique to master the 7 hearts technique. At 22, jealous of you, the sect leader's son ambushed you while you were on a mission, surrounding you with his people. You executed all his followers, leaving only the sect leader's son alive. He knelt before you, begging for mercy, and you hesitated. Do you choose to execute him? Kill. Guan didn't hesitate, and the prompt continued to appear. Killing men and sparing women? Seems like there's something wrong with the standard, huh? Guan criticized himself internally. Subsequently, the him in the reincarnation returned to the Tai sect, faced continuous strife and enmity, and he always chose to kill, since it was others who provoked him. Killing led to the unveiling of secrets, and he was pursued by the Tai sect and even placed on a wanted list. After that, almost every year he was embroiled in battles, sometimes several times within a year. Once, Guan chose to save a wounded cultivator he encountered by chance, only for that person to summon a large group of cultivators to ambush him, intending to seize the magic artifact in his possession. Angered, Guan's killing intent intensified. One betrayal after another, jealousy, and feuds kept unfolding. What an impressive turn of events. Indeed, this was the dark great heaven and earth, and the world seemed excessively grim. Over the first 50 years, Guan encountered not a single kind-hearted cultivator. He was fighting alone the entire time. The most distressing part for him was that, in order to get back at him, his enemies extracted the souls of his family still in the mountain village and refined them into resentful ghosts to be embedded in ghost devices. Furious, Guan became even more ruthless in his subsequent choices, always responding to killing with killing. His lifespan accumulated rapidly, and by 50 he had reached the cultivation level of loose immortal realm, becoming the East Profound Domain's killing god. At the age of 65, you encountered the girl you once spared, Cheng Jialan. She had now become a disciple of the Blue Sky Holy Sect, a renowned genius. She recognized you and was very grateful. You were moved by her attitude. At 66, pursued by Cheng Jialan, you both became Taoist friends. At 67, Cheng Jialan gave birth to a son and a daughter for you, and you cherished her even more. At 68, while you were cultivating, a wandering carefree primordial immortal from the Blue Sky Holy Sect descended. He was known as the Black Profound Emperor and crushed you to death. Reincarnation ends. What? It's over already? Guan nearly spit blood. For 10 million years of lifespan he only got 68 years of life? Black Profound Emperor. Okay, very good. At this moment, the entire ocean was experiencing a violent storm, with endless towering waves, as the divine sense of a carefree primordial immortal frantically scanned the area. Guan didn't mind since the area was mostly inhabited by lost souls and wild ghosts who wandered the mortal world, suffering from the rejection of the heaven and earth rules. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to invest 5 million years of his lifespan. It was uncertain whether the early investment of 100 million years of lifespan could erase the gap in the difficulty of cultivation between the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma and higher realms. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 30,000 years, forcefully attempting to assault the Tao void mysterious immortal realm with the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, starting the tribulation crossing. You didn't endure the 6 realms destiny ultimate void tribulation, failing the tribulation, 30,000 years for one tribulation crossing. Guan was thrilled, knowing that previously when he attempted to reach the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, it took 60,000 years for one chance to cross the tribulation. However, even more surprising events occurred. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 300,000 years, you endured the 6 realms destiny ultimate void tribulation with the forceful use of the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, and succeeded in the tribulation crossing, advancing your cultivation level to the first layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 500,000 years, advancing your cultivation level to the second layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm, 10 successful crossings. I'm really fucking strong. Guan was ecstatic, but as he looked further, his smile gradually faded. The time required for each level in the Tao void mysterious immortal realm kept increasing. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 4 million years, advancing your cultivation level to the 8th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 4.7 million years, advancing your cultivation level to the 9th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 5 million years, forcefully assailing the divine thought true immortal realm with the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, starting the tribulation crossing. You didn't endure the heavenly Tao 49 mysterious void tribulation, failing the tribulation. That's good. Reaching the 9th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm in 5 million years was an unexpectedly pleasant surprise. But what's after was shocking. An attempt of tribulation every 300,000 years. If following the old pattern, failing 100 times would mean 30 million years of lifespan. Failing 200 times would mean 60 million years of lifespan. That's ridiculously exaggerated. Is the divine thought true immortal that mighty? It's a big leap. Guan didn't question it much, given he hadn't even heard of the Tao void mysterious immortal, let alone the higher divine thought true immortal. Once again, nature's spiritual energy surged towards him, the entire ocean's spiritual energy abruptly sank, and its range rapidly expanded. Damn. This commotion is a bit excessive. Guan was secretly alarmed, feeling he might once again bring about a calamity to the mortal world. The vast amounts of spiritual energy required to transition from the ninth layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to the ninth layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal far exceeded Guan's imagination. However, he could judge the resources of the great heavenly spirit land through this disturbance. If his breakthrough affected the entire great heavenly spirit land, it would indicate that the Tao void mysterious realm cultivators in the great heavenly spirit land were few and far between. While feeling the transformation within himself, Guan observed the surroundings. The range of spiritual energy extraction grew larger, and in less than 30 minutes, it exceeded the size of the area the great cold demon sect planned to annihilate and was still rapidly increasing. Time swiftly passed. An hour later, Guan forcefully achieved the Tao void mysterious immortal. Regardless of the realm, the evolutionary cultivation would always compress the breakthrough into 1 hour. The mysteries of the Tao void mysterious immortal flooded into his mind. A Tao void mysterious immortal could transcend universal rules and travel through the Great Thousand World. The so-called Great Thousand World consists of countless realms like the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, and only reaching this level would one touch the barriers of the universe. Of course, not all universes can be easily traversed, as there are also differences in strength among them. The power of a mysterious immortal is even greater, capable of transforming all things into living beings. Reaching this level means starting to condense one's own Tao. The so-called Tao is the condensation of the overall path of immortal cultivation, manifesting as will, capable of condensing a Tao form and using it to battle and suppress everything. Guan was immersed in the transformation brought by the Tao void mysterious immortal, unable to extricate himself. Only when his cultivation level broke through to the second layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm did his consciousness awaken. He looked up, the universe no longer looked so distant to him. His gaze and divine sense reached perfect unity, allowing him even to peer into the ends of the universe. He saw the silent destruction domain described by Zia, a place of utter darkness emitting a terrifying aura that made it difficult for him to infiltrate lightly. For he sensed auras within that made him wary, not just one but several. Time continued to move forward. Guan began to detect the approach of various cultivators' aura. Looking up, he saw a massive number of cultivators flying out of the Holy Land where the Holy Court was located, quickly approaching, the numbers even surpassing those of the Great Cold Demon sect. His breakthrough had indeed alarmed the Holy Court. It must be said, compared to the Holy Court, the Great Cold Demon sect was utterly incomparable. The cultivators who flew out were of loose immortal realm at the lowest, numbering over 5 million and still increasing. More than 5 million loose immortals, what an exaggeration. He even sensed the aura of divine immortals of wondrous Dharma and carefree primordial immortals, with more than 10 divine immortals of wondrous Dharma among them. The cultivators of the Holy Court dispersed to protect various continents and islands. The ocean stirred up world-shocking waves, the speed of the sinking spiritual energy causing many continents to shatter. Seeing the Holy Court coming out to protect the common people, Guan breathed a sigh of relief, holding the Holy Court in much higher regard. He didn't want his breakthrough to result in the extinction of countless beings. It seems the support of the Great Cold Demon sect by the Holy Court was only the will of that Holy King. If the Holy Court became his enemy in the future, regardless of the animosity, simply for today's actions of the Holy Court, he wouldn't thoroughly exterminate them. Of course, it would be even better if he could establish friendly relations with the Holy Court. Cultivation doesn't have to be all about fighting and killing. The benefits derived from slaughtering the Great Cold Demon sect were indeed massive, but it also attracted much wariness. Look now, the battle just ended, and divine immortals of wondrous Dharma have shown up, a realm previously unheard of. If he became too arrogant and a more terrifying existence than the divine thought true immortal appeared and slapped him to death with one palm, what could he do? The experience of Chu Lu was a lesson. Of course, more of Chu Lu's death was due to trusting the wrong person. Guan couldn't help but curse at him. How dare you marry into the family of someone you killed? Although initially Chu Lu was the victim, he should have stayed away from Cheng Jialan. With the Holy Court taking action, Guan felt even more at ease. He began to focus on enjoying the transformation of the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal. Reaching the 9th layer of the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal realm, what could the Holy King behind the Great Cold Demon sect do to him? If that Holy King was also a Tao Void Mysterious Immortal, then Guan would fight with all his might to achieve another breakthrough. Stealing the 5 elements had always been winning, quite arrogantly at that. Seeing their master defeat him, how could the disciples not be exhilarated? Nine-fingered Divine Lord was amused. It turned out it wasn't that he was inadequate. Rather, Guan truly possessed extraordinary comprehension in the ways of chess. Guan left amid the cheers of the disciples, his face wearing a smug smile. Play against me? You'll need another 100 million years of practice. Guan admitted that those at the 9th layer of heaven and earth flying immortal realm were powerful, just 27 small realms below him. Returning to the loft, Guan sat down and opened his attribute panel. He felt regret over the previous lifespan samsara and wished to start another game. After all, there were still plenty of Holy Court great cultivators patrolling outside heaven, so there was no rush to break through. Just one game and definitely not getting carried away. You consume 10 million years of lifespan to initiate one reincarnation evolution. Connecting with Tao rules. Searching for reincarnation worlds. You can choose one of the following worlds: 1. Great Heavenly Spirit Land. 2. 9 Extreme Great Heaven and Earth. 3. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Guan hesitated for a moment before deciding he would still choose the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Where one falls, there one shall rise. This time he would not repeat the same mistakes. You have chosen to reincarnate into the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Considering that the Tao rules of this world cannot conceal your talent, you shall retain your ability to seize lifespan, but you will not be able to unlock stage-wise functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you are born into a noble household within the Beiqian domain's Great Xia Holy Dynasty, blessed by your parents with the name Xiao Xingtian. At the age of 5, while you are fast asleep, you fall victim to poisoning by a concubine of your father's 3rd wife. Before you lose consciousness, you glimpse her figure. Fortunately, your mother discovers you in time, allowing for your rescue. Once your strength returns, your grandfather gathers the family in the Great Hall. Faced with your grandfather's query, will you choose to expose that you were poisoned by the 3rd wife's concubine? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.